Good morning and happy game day from all of us here at CBS Sports HQ. Welcome to College Football Pregame presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. The final week of the college football regular season is here, and what a ride it has been. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside this incredible crew for the final time this season. It's Damien Harris, Mackenzie Brooks, Danny Kanell, and James White with you. We have 100% reached the end of the regular season, and if we're being honest, this crew struggle bus this morning. I don't know really where to begin. James had an absolute travel day from hell to get here. I don't know how he made it. Danny's just been fending off the SEC faithful. Ken, she refractured, are we saying, your foot last night, jumping up and down watching your dog?
I just got a little excited. I got elevated. Not supposed to get elevated.
Yeah.
Back down. Damien's eating gluten when he's
this guy had gluten-free or didn't have gluten-free.
Yeah, so I went to a restaurant last night with my wife and son, trying to enjoy a nice dinner. I order a cauliflower crust pizza. It's not cauliflower. And I'm sitting here thinking, yo, that's the best cauliflower crust I've ever had. I'm talking to my wife like, it's the best gluten-free pizza ever. And she's pulling it apart like, nah, this is not gluten-free. And I felt it immediately. So we're all struggling a little bit.
We are so good. We're going to rally 3 hours. I'm unfortunately tasked with rallying us all for the next 3 hours, but it's going to be fun. We have to begin, you guys, with the thriller that was last night in Athens. 8 overtimes, Georgia Tech taking on rival Georgia. It was incredible. Let's roll through some of these highlights. Danny, I want you to do this with me. The turning point in this game came with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Haynes King getting lit up and turns the ball over in their own territory.
Yeah, never mind the targeting that probably took place here. Daniel Jackson just spears him right in the chest. But that was a huge play for Georgia's defense. And then they capitalize off the turnover. Carson Beck with a big touchdown throw there to tie it up with 1 minute to go. You see him barely getting in the end zone, but does get in. Clear touchdown. This thing was wild. And then once we get to overtime, that's when it gets really exciting because you see the 2-point plays have to keep going for it. Haynes King was an absolute warrior in this game last night, Jordan.
Yeah, how many ice baths is he having after this game? We were now in the second overtime. 5th overtime we go, and Georgia made it 42-40. We saw Tech, they miss Nate Frazier there. And I mean, the fact that
was the best
Georgia Tech was able to put up 40 points on a Kirby Smart defense. Credit. We have to give credit to where credit's due, Danny.
To everybody. I mean, Georgia was down 17-0 at the half, so they deserve a ton of credit for clawing their way back into an ACC. I thought they couldn't compete with the SEC.
Right.
It's little old Georgia Tech going into Sanford Stadium, which I thought was one of the toughest places to play. But you give credit to both teams. It was phenomenal college football on display. So entertaining. Seeing blood. I mean, that's what rivalries are about. When you put your body on the line, and that's what you saw from Haynes King. You saw it from several Georgia players. Everyone's pouring it out on the field, and you see the emotions from both sides, the ups, the downs. It was phenomenal. Go check out Kansas social media pages.
Has your blood pressure come down or what?
I couldn't go to. I'm sitting there in bed all tucked, and I'm like, how am I supposed to just go to bed? My heart's like.
The game lasted so long. You had a flight back home from Thanksgiving,
so I was
and you still got home and got to watch the game.
Yeah, well, I was in the middle seat of a plane, like punching air. There's like a poor old woman and old man next to my right and left, and then I'm in the Uber with like 3 minutes left to go, and then I'm lugging all my suitcases. I have multiple suitcases, going shopping with Mom all week in Philly, lugging them all upstairs, and then finally get home, and I thought I was barely going to make the end. Little did I know we had 45 minutes left of football to be played, and my neighbors were probably really confused by the sounds coming out of my apartment.
Damien, what was going through your mind watching this thriller?
Honestly, I just got to give a huge shout out to both head coaches, Kirby Smart and Brent Key. Like, this was an instant classic, and I really want to focus on Brent Key and Georgia Tech because I played along Brent Key at Alabama, and just the culture that he's provided, that he's bringing to Georgia Tech. Obviously, being a guy that played there, and now he's the head coach, and you're competing at Sanford Stadium with one of the top teams in the country. Like, that was nothing short of impressive. It speaks a lot of volumes to what Brent Key is doing with this program, how he's continuing to build. And I think when we talk about Haynes King and like the Superman heroics that he performed with last night, well, that's a credit to Brent Key as well. Like, that is what Brent Key pours into his players. When they buy in, these are the results that you get. So huge shout out to both teams. I mean, mean, they competed at an unbelievable level. You got offense, you got defense, you got like there was so much to watch. There was so much on display, and I'm just glad we all got to witness it.
James was so locked in, you almost missed his flight. You did actually miss your flight.
No, he did miss his flight.
There's no almost.
I left really impressed with Carson Beck. He had an excellent performance early on in the football game. A lot of drops from his receivers, slow start offensively, go down 17-0. Then the second half, their offense scored 21 points. In that fourth quarter, it was excellent. He was dishing it. He was taking some shots. He was using his legs, extending plays. For a guy who struggled a few weeks ago with turnovers and putting the ball in harm's way, I thought he played an excellent football game at the right time for his football team.
Can I just say,
no.
College football, I'm going to say it anyway, college football's overtime is the most entertaining aspect of any sport that's out there. And I love it. I heard a lot of people complaining about college football's overtime when it gets to the two-point plays. It feels like a crapshoot. No, it's just one play. Well, then stop them in the first overtime. The only tweak I would make is possibly move the first overtime back to maybe the 40-yard line so the kick is a little bit more than a chip shot. Other than that, I think it's dramatic, it's entertaining, it brings in offense, defense, and special teams. You saw the chess match with Kirby Smart calling those timeouts before every formation to coach up his team. That was incredible, and he had them so he could use them. It's awesome. I love college football's overtime. Too many people are complaining about it.
Well, I mean, you got to think about the players. Think about the players.
Look at the offensive coordinator trying to draw up a 14.
Right. Your play call, your sheet isn't that long now.
People are complaining out here, acting like we see this every single weekend. Like, oh, another 8 overtime a game that we have to go through. Obviously, we don't find ourselves in that situation often, so I don't think it's the end of the world that we have like a PK type of vibe at the end of the games. I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I want to ask one question, though, because we're talking about this game, and James, you talked about how impressed you were with Carson Beck. At the end of the season, is he starting to play his way back up the draft boards? Because I think he is. The way he's played the past couple weeks, like this is the Carson Beck that was projected to be the #1 pick in the draft, Heisman potential. I mean, now we're starting to see what he's capable of and what he did last year and what teams think he can do in the future. So, do you think he is?
I do believe he's working himself up the draft boards. I mean, if you look at the quarterback class this year going into the 2025 NFL draft, it isn't that many high-profile players. You got Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and you can put Carson Beck, maybe Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel. But the way he's been playing to close out this year has been very impressive. Like I said, he's has the arm talent, fitting the throws in tight windows. It's just the turnovers. If he cuts that out, he has the size. He can throw the ball all over the yard. He's been very impressive.
This Georgia team can win the national championship. And
you're coming around.
They also could get bounced in the first round. They're a volatile team, which is awesome. I'm sure it's fun for you to watch, but they have that much talent. They could win it all.
They'll make you work for it.
Well, speaking of the college football playoff and the national championship, with the win, we are confident to say that Georgia has clinched a spot in the college football playoff as you look at what the bracket currently looks like. You know, additionally, though, you guys, Sportsline, as of right now, has 6 teams that are locked to make the college football playoff. That includes Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Georgia, as we mentioned, and Indiana. All have greater than a 95% chance to make the college football playoff. But, Damien, do you agree that all 6 of those teams are worthy and have booked their ticket?
It's so hard because there's so much parity. Our guy Danny Kanell loves to say there's so much parity in college football. I don't really think anybody outside of an Oregon and Ohio State, potentially Texas, I mean, we'll see what happens in the SEC championship, but really outside of those top 2 teams, I don't really think anybody is a lock because so many things can change. The SEC can move around. Clearly, we're starting to get into the conversation where there might only be one SEC team. Like Matt, we were talking about the potential there being 4 or 5, 6, and Danny was pounding his fist on the table. Hell, now we might only get one.
It's amazing because last week we were like, there's not enough spots. We have too many teams. And then after the results of last weekend, it's like, oh my God, we don't have enough teams.
Right.
Okay, so piggybacking off of that, how many spots are realistically up for grabs here?
I think what happens with the ACC this weekend can either add you ACC spots or add you SEC spots if you only end up getting one ACC team. So again, that 4th SEC spot, obviously dependent on what happens with Clemson and South Carolina. I think that's going to be a huge game for playoff implications. You talk about South Carolina, if they beat Clemson, they're kind of knocking Clemson out of playoff contention. But then if Clemson smacks down on South Carolina, makes the ACC look like a great conference that can compete with the SEC, maybe we get all 3 SEC or ACC teams in some version of the story.
Yeah, we would hate that, wouldn't we?
That would just be terrible.
No, so the reason they're 95% chance is because of exactly what we saw last night. Like, we saw Georgia Tech as a 19-point underdog, and we're like, oh, that's going to be an easy win. Just punch Georgia's ticket. Ohio State has a game against Michigan today where they're about the same, 20.5-point favorite in that one. If they lose, I think all of a sudden this conversation changes dramatically. Texas is an interesting one because they are not as big a favorite. They are playing on the road. And if Texas A&M beats them, I think it gets really interesting because Texas's resume is not great. And I think that could possibly keep them out.
I hear you, but you don't drop from number 2, number 3 in the country to out of the playoff.
We don't know because we haven't seen this yet.
We saw Alabama lose to Vandy, and they didn't even drop to that degree. So I know you don't like it, but I'm going to...
No, I think it would be a debate, though, and you do not want to leave it up. I'll say this because the first year of the college football playoff, TCU was sitting at 3rd, and it was the Baylor-TCU year when they had all this debate. They dropped from 3rd to 6th, and they won. So, we don't know what the committee's going to do when it finally comes down to that final decision.
I think each of those teams deserve to be in the college football playoff, be a lock, because all those teams have 1 or 2 losses. As we see in college football, it's hard to win. You see Georgia Tech pushing Georgia to the wire every single week. Those wins are hard to come by. So if you have 1 or 2 losses, you deserve to be in there because there's plenty of 3-loss teams behind them. I don't think you can put them ahead of a team that has 1 or 2 losses.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because when the latest rankings came out, you had a 2-loss Georgia and a 2-loss Tennessee that were ranked above 1-loss SMU and 1-loss Indiana. So to me, when I saw that, that was the playoff committee looking and saying, well, we just think these teams are better. And now that whole conversation that we have all the time about strength of schedule, record, things like that start to go out the window because clearly we're seeing the committee sees Tennessee and Georgia being better than SMU and Indiana.
They got a harder schedule.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean,
I think what's funny is not funny. I mean, it's tough for Texas A&M. Their options are, if you lose to Texas, you pick up a 4th loss and no one really wants to put you in the college football playoff. Okay, say you beat Texas. 2 claps for you. You go to the SEC championship. You're the runner-up, and you get. And I know the committee's saying we're going to reward you for making the SEC championship, but to pick up the 4th loss in the SEC championship, is that pretty? Texas A&M's only option is to literally win the SEC championship, which is a 12% chance of beating Texas and Georgia, which coincides with the 12% implied odds they have to make.
Which we saw everyone saying about Georgia. If they had lost last night and then they had lost in the SEC, it would have been 4. So if you're thinking Georgia would have been out, I think it's the same with A&M.
Yeah. So you believe all those 6 teams are locks and they should be in that college football playoff. None of those teams, though, from the Big 12. I do want to switch gears here, and we're going to get into the Big 12, the conference as a whole, shortly because it needs its own dedicated segment. There's a lot going on there. But just looking at kind of Colorado individually here, is this team a top 12 team in the country right now? Can they compete with the Texases, the Bamas, the Ohio States as the world? As you look here at the Big 12 standings, by the end of today, Damien, we will know who is in that Big 12 title game. But right now, you see 6 teams in the mix and alive. But do you believe Colorado is one of the best 12 teams in the nation?
I think they are. I think the loss to Kansas speaks more volumes to Kansas because they were playing world beaters. They knocked off BYU, they knocked off Iowa State, then they knock off Colorado. They're playing the best football of their season at that particular time. Yes, that was a knock on Colorado's resume, but I still think, especially when you watched them yesterday against Oklahoma State, not only did their superstars, Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Webster, have phenomenal games, they gave up 0 points, 52-0. We're starting to talk about Boulder, Colorado being a tough place to play, a place that people don't want to go to. They're building something there. They have the talent, they have the fundamentals, they have the coaching staff to do it. I easily think that they should be, or they are, one of the 12 best teams in college football.
All right, well, the Big 12 needs a lot of scenarios to happen for some of these teams to make that Big 12 title game. Let's run through some of the other scenarios in other conferences. We begin with the Big 10. We do know that Oregon has clinched their spot in the championship game, which is on CBS this year. We will be there. We're so excited for it. But right now, we just need to find their opponent. The easiest way to find out who it is, you guys, is if Ohio State beats Michigan today. Let's get to the ACC now and show you where SMU has clinched a spot in the championship game. Their opponent, still a question mark, but it's all riding on the Miami-Syracuse game later on today. If Miami wins, they are in. If Syracuse wins, then Clemson is in the ACC championship game. And lastly here, in the SEC, Georgia, as we know, will be in Atlanta as they have solidified their spot in the SEC championship. Their opponent will be the winner of the Texas A&M game later on today. Let's go ahead and dive into that game now. And there are some news right off the bat surrounding the big game down in College Station, Texas. Longhorns quarterback Quinn Ewers is probable to play despite suffering an ankle injury last week. He is expected to get the start today. And Danny, just how much does Texas need him at full strength today?
They need him at full strength, but they need to unleash him. He's been a little bit of a check down Charlie here the last few weeks. And what I don't know is that Sark trying to protect him, get the ball out of his hands. He doesn't want to keep it, hold it for the shots downfield. But obviously, you have a good backup in Arch Manning, but I still think there is a drop-off. And Quinn Ewers has been a quarterback, we talked about this a lot, who's gone on the road and won in Tuscaloosa. He's gone on the road in Ann Arbor and won in Michigan. He's taken this team to the playoffs last year where he had a great game against Washington. So absolutely, I think this is going to be a game he has to step up. And what's going to be really interesting to watch for in this game is Texas A&M's pass rush. When you've got the advantage of crowd noise, you've got a Nick Scorton on the outside. If Quinn Ewers is not mobile, he could be a sitting duck, and it could be a very long night for him. But I would imagine you do whatever it takes. You take whatever you take. You wrap up whatever you have to wrap up on your ankle, and you make sure you're good to go.
All right, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, Danny, what is it going to take for Arch Manning to come into this game and take over?
I mean, we saw it, right? We saw it against Georgia. If they're struggling and he has a pick or two and the offense is sputtering and not doing anything and you get multiple 3-and-outs, Sark has shown he'll go to the bullpen. And so I think we saw the example of what it would take. So I'm sure Quinn Ewers knows that. Sark has set the tone, and that's what we'll be watching for.
All right, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that game from College Station later on in the show because we are just getting started here on College Football Pregame. It is Rivalry Week, a week that many Buckeyes fans for the past few years have dreaded after losing to rival Michigan for 3 straight years. Is this finally the year head coach Ryan Day gets it done and snaps that skid? Plus, in the SEC, it's Iron Bowl week down in Tuscaloosa, a game our own Damien Harris knows firsthand. But is Auburn really Bama's biggest rival? The former Bama running back tells us next. College football pregame presented by Hellmann's and America's #1 mayonnaise. Week 14 is here and brings us a ton of rivalry games. We have a huge slate to cap off this season. Let's go ahead and begin with, after 13 years, the big in-state rivalry in Texas back on the schedule. It's #3 Texas Longhorns traveling to College Station to take on #20 Texas A&M in a game that has so much more on the line than just bragging rights, but also an appearance in the SEC championship game and positioning in the college football playoffs. Damien, what are you expecting in this one?
Well, first of all, it's only right that the first time this matchup has been played in 13 years, it's for a spot in the SEC championship game, right? Like, what a way to bring back one of college football's best rivalries. But for me, I'm looking for, can Texas establish the run game? Can they get Contravion Wisner and Jaden Blue going? Because we're talking about Quinn Ewers and his mobility issues. We're talking about the ankle. Can they get the ground game going so that this Texas team is not one-dimensional?
Yep, and at this moment, as we mentioned, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers is expected to start in this game. We will continue to keep you posted if anything changes. Over in Clemson, South Carolina, two rivals in Clemson and South Carolina sit on the college football playoff rankings top 15. Firmly on the CFP bubble, Danny, stakes couldn't be higher from Death Valley.
I love this rivalry. I think it's one of the more underrated rivalries in college football. And Jordan, you mentioned what's at stake. I think this is the most at stake in this rivalry since it's been played. Think about it. When was there ever a time when Clemson and South Carolina were playing against each other for a spot in the college football playoff potentially and a chance to win a national championship? I don't think it's ever happened. Both these teams hate each other. Lenora Sellers, South Carolina, comes in as this hot team. Clemson is trying to salvage a season which fell a little bit short of expectations with the loss to Georgia and the loss to Louisville at home. So much at stake here. Cannot wait to watch this one unfold.
Yeah, it's a big one. Kicking off at noon Eastern. Back in the SEC we go. We're down in Tuscaloosa. It's the Iron Bowl when Alabama hosts Auburn in a game that really both head coaches, Damien, in this matchup need a win.
They absolutely do, but I'm looking for, how does Alabama respond? This is one of the most embarrassing losses that the program has faced in 2 decades. How is Kalen DeBoer going to respond? How is Jalen Milroe going to respond? Is the offense going to get more playmakers involved? Is the defense going to finally start to stop people, whether it's the run game or the pass game? Alabama is in a position to be outside of the college football playoff looking in. This is not a familiar territory for them. How do you respond against one of your biggest rivals in one of the biggest games of the year?
Ooh,
You didn't want to give him too much credit.
I thought that. I know, I saw that. All right, last but certainly not least, today in the Big Ten, the pressure has been on all season for Ohio State's head coach Ryan Day, but today more than ever, as the head coach is hoping to end a 3-game losing streak to rival Michigan. How can he finally get it done today, James?
He's going to have to slow down Michigan's run game. That has been their downfall against Michigan over the last several years. Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum running crazy all over him. They want to win this football game. Has to be won in the trenches. If Donovan Edwards goes for over 100 yards and Mullins goes for over 100 yards, they have 200 yards rushing for Michigan. It's going to be a much closer football game than what they expect. Ohio State would like nothing better than to kick Michigan while they're down. They've been struggling. They cannot throw the football, and their defense is playing like the best defense in the country currently. So they have the upper hand. If Ryan Day loses this one,
What's that buyout? What's that buyout look like?
That's something we'll get to, but the biggest news, too, in that game is that Ohio State can clinch their spot in the Big Ten title game with a win, but beating rival Michigan is really what this Buckeyes fan base wants and just needs, and head coach Ryan Day knows that. Take a listen to this.
We felt what it's like to not win this game, and it's bad. It's one of the worst things that's happened to me in my life, you know, quite honestly. Other than losing my father and a few other things, like it's quite honestly for my family the worst thing that's happened. So we can never have that happen again, ever. And that's been the approach all season. It'll be the same approach for these seniors.
Ryan Day, the drama. Not beating Michigan is the worst thing in my life. I'm sure many Buckeyes fans, though, agree now. It's time for Motivations presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. Any bigger motivation for Ryan Day this week than the opportunity to clinch the Big Ten title game and also beat rival Michigan?
It's all about beating Michigan. He's talked about it. The seniors have talked about it. Will Howard has talked about it. Like, this is their kryptonite. They have not been able to get over the hump of Michigan under Ryan Day. This is going to be their test. Can they finally get it done on the path to a national championship? If they don't, like we're talking about, we have to start having some tough, uncomfortable conversations about Ryan Day if they're not able to get it done today.
We were in Indy for the Big Ten Media Days to start the season, and there was like an aura around Ryan Day that was just tension, stress. Like, you could just feel it. Like, and this is what it culminates in this game. And you hear him talking about that. He's not somebody who's denying it or trying to downplay it. He's leaning into it, saying, look at, how devastating this could be, which is an interesting psychological game that you're playing, because your players are watching this as well, and you're putting a lot of pressure on them. But the whole season is at stake in this game.
And that's what I wonder. They're putting so much pressure, applying so much pressure on this game. Will they come out playing tight and allow Michigan to keep themselves in this football game? I have friends that are fans of Ohio State, and they say they'll much rather beat Michigan than win the national title this year. That's how important this game is to them. So I just hope for Ohio State they play loose. You're the better football team. They'll go out there and play light, because if not, I feel bad. I like Ryan Day. I know a lot of guys don't like him, but to go out there and only lose one game in multiple seasons, it's hard to win.
Yeah. When you lose the biggest one outside of a national championship or a conference championship, that's like Alabama losing to Auburn 3 times in a 4-year span. Like, that coach, he's going to be up out of there. Like, so when you can't win the biggest game on your schedule, which I don't care who Ohio State plays week in and week out, the Michigan game, Ryan Day just said it, it is the biggest game of the season. When you consistently lose that, and then on top of that, that pressure that he's applying for this game, let's look out for today. Who knows?
Ryan Day 1-3 against Michigan, 45-1 against all other Big Ten teams at Ohio State. Speaking of rivalry games, you guys have played in a few of them. I'm curious, because a few weeks ago you said that LSU was starting to become maybe a bigger rival for Alabama. Do you feel that same way now that the Iron Bowl is here?
Alabama has a lot of rivals, and that's the good part about being so good is everybody wants to give you your best game. A lot of people have talked about it. Even Nick Saban alluded to it. Sometimes you have to get players up for this game. But, when you got guys like DeMarcus Riddick coming out and talking about Jalen Milroe, talking about Ryan Williams, talking about, Jalen's not getting out the box, Ryan Williams not special. Well, those are all the things that once you get to rivalry week, remind you of how special these games are, and it reminds you of how much hatred, I don't even like to use that word, but how much hatred and how much despise there is for the team that you're lining up against. So now that it's Iron Bowl week, Auburn is the biggest rival on our schedule, because it's all about this game, it's all about this moment, it's all about Alabama taking care of business in this Iron Bowl, in this matchup today, to revive themselves from that horrible, horrendous loss last week against Oklahoma.
Danny, who is your biggest rival? I'm curious, because I think we have different answers.
Yeah, well, it came down to 2, and it was clearly Miami or Florida.
Yes.
And then it was like, do you want to have to listen to a bunch of Miami fans who didn't even go to the university, like, come out there and talk smack all season long? Or did you want to listen to Florida fans who hadn't done anything yet, act like they were the greatest team in the history of college football? I'll say it was probably the Gators. There was more respect because they had already won multiple national championships at Miami. And I think our players, we just respected them more because they had been there and done that. I would say Florida was the more hated, and it was the last game of the season, which is a big deal. Like, it often would determine if we were playing in the national championship, what bowl we were going to. And man, they were so obnoxious and so cocky. We wanted to humble them.
Look at the vintage highlights, though. Look at here.
Look at those wheels.
I know, I love it. Do you feel like it's changing, though?
That's right.
Do you feel like it's changing, leaning more towards Miami? Because I think when I was
they're
in school,
both. I think they're both still, like, right up there. That's one of my favorite parts about Florida State, is those two are scared to play all 3, and we played both of them. And so I think they're both, like, it depends on the season, it depends on who's better. Like, that's how it usually unfolds, but you want to beat them both.
Yeah, how about you, James? Battle of the Paul Bunyan axe yesterday, the boys. Yikes.
I didn't realize
Sorry to bring it up.
The axe is huge.
The axe is huge. I actually never got to carry it for whatever reason. Yeah, we had a tough loss against those guys across the border yesterday. Tough season for my Wisconsin Badgers. A lot of ups and downs, but that was the biggest game for us this season, and we let ourselves down. Offense couldn't do much. Got to give Minnesota a ton of credit. They've gotten better. When I was in college, never lost to Minnesota. We had like 11 or 12 year win streak against them, but they've gotten better.
Was that the most meaningful game?
It definitely is. Last game of the year. There's so much tradition. It's the oldest rivalry in college football. It dates back to 1890, so it's very important for the program. And now we have an empty trophy case and lost all our rivalry games. So.
Well, wait a minute, hold on. So you never lost to Minnesota, but you never carried the axe. How?
Just a lot of seniors. Usually the seniors carried, and I don't like to say that.
You were a humble man, James.
James is that guy that's like, no.
Hey,
Y'all got it, man. Y'all got it.
You just got to call him out like this guy. He has no problem doing that. You might as well. Come on. Hey, more from us when we return here on College Football Pregame. Colorado kept their Big 12 title hopes alive yesterday behind an incredible performance from both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. But is there a world where both Sanders and Hunter go first and second in the upcoming NFL draft? That sparks the question. In the year 2000, you guys, which college team had players drafted first and second overall in the same draft, and who were they? I'll let that marinate. Think about it, and we'll give you the answer on the other side. Back here in College Football Pregame on CBS Sports HQ, I've stumped my guys because we've asked you before the break, in the year 2000, which college football team had players drafted first and second overall in the same draft, and who were they? I'll give you a hint before we reveal the answer. The conference you asked in the break from the Big Ten.
Nothing.
Nada.
I'm trying to think who was 2000 because I thought Mike Vick, but he was probably 2001. Was he even #1 overall?
Let's go ahead and reveal the answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we look dumb.
Before we look dumb. Too late, Danny.
Oh, wow.
Two Penn State products.
I maybe would have taken a shot at LeVar Arrington, but I would have never had Courtney Brown.
Really? Okay. Isn't that crazy?
An LB and a D lineman, 1 and 2.
Right? That's what I was thinking. QB something.
Wow.
It only happened once in history, but there is a chance that it could happen again as we talk about some incredible performances we saw yesterday from Colorado's two-way star Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. You know, our own NFL draft analyst Ryan Wilson has both Shedeur and Travis Hunter going in the top 5 in his latest NFL mock draft for CBS. So it is a possibility, but do you see it happening?
It should, but it also depends on who's got the #1 pick. I mean, I know right now it's with the Giants, but trades happens. Teams can move up, teams can move down. It's all about what a team needs, but these are the 2 best football players in college football draft eligible. I think, obviously, when we talk about Heisman, you got to talk about Ashton Jeanty, but when you talk about the top 2 prospects going into the draft, I think it has to be Travis and Shedeur.
All right, when we talk about the Heisman, we got to talk about Ashton Jeanty. He says, however, many believe that Travis Hunter, with his performance yesterday, just looking at the stats, 3 touchdown passes, 116 yards receiving. On the other side of the ball, he picked up his 4th interception on the season. Has he locked up the Heisman, in your opinion?
I don't think he has. I don't have an issue with Travis Hunter winning the Heisman, and I don't have an issue with Ashton Jeanty be a favorite as well. What Travis Hunter is doing is unprecedented. I know a lot of people are saying his biggest stat is his snap count, which that should be a huge stat. To be playing almost every snap in the entire game and have a huge impact on both sides of the ball, I don't think we'll ever see anything like it. But Ashton Jeanty, what he's been doing is so special. Just physical, running through arm tackles, really being the bell cow for his football team. Without him, I don't think we'll be talking about Boise State. So I don't have a problem with either one of those guys being 1 and 2.
No. I was gonna let you finish your thought, but something just came to me. Do you think that when we talk about Travis Hunter's snap count and how many plays he plays both ways, should we also take into account, yes, Ashton Jeanty is playing less snaps, but the amount of hits that he is taking per play? Do you think that starts to manage or mitigate the gap a little bit when we talk about snap count?
I mean, he gets a ton of carries. What do you have, 37 carries the other day? So he's getting a whole boatload, a lot of contact. And
don't forget, a lot of these 60 and 70-yard touchdowns runs we see, he's usually broken 3 or 4 tackles before he gets to the second level. So
I think it makes it more impressive.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, say it. Bring it to life.
It makes it more impressive because I said he is their offense. I know Max Madison, he does a solid job of distributing the ball to the receivers, but I don't think they're able to execute passing without, stacking the box. The defense is stacking the box to stop Ashton Jeanty. So, yeah, man, he's been truly impressive the way he's been able to rip off these long runs with these stacked boxes.
He's been playing awesome. One thing I hate about this debate is it feels like you have to trash the other guy. And I know it's not a lot on social media. They're both having incredible years. The reality is, if Ashton Jeanty is 2 things. One, if he does it any other year, where there's not a Travis Hunter, I think he wins. And if he does it at a Bama or even a Wisconsin or a Power 4 school, I think he runs away with it then. I do think he's getting dinged, I think rightfully so, for playing a Group of 5 schedule. But I think what Travis Hunter is doing is historic, and it is special. And when people diminish it by saying it's just a snap count, I don't think they've watched many of the games because he makes massive catches, he gets massive breakups, pass breakups, or he gets interceptions like he did yesterday. I think they're both incredible players, but I do think this is going to be a coronation of Travis Hunter. I think, I don't think Ashton Jeanty has a chance to win it. I think he'll be there, and I think he'll be a firm second place. I just think it's going to be a runaway.
As we get set to put a bow on this conversation, you'll notice there we just showed you that Travis Hunter is a finalist for almost every college football award that is out there, except for the Jim Thorpe Award. Do you believe that he was snubbed from that? He
definitely was snubbed.
Yeah?
I don't think they're watching tape. This kid, I don't know why teams still continue to target him, because when the ball comes his direction, usually intercepts it or deflects it. You cannot complete a pass against him. So it's truly impressive what he's doing. For a guy who you can't complete passes against, how's he not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award? Doesn't really make sense to me.
But my question is going to be, well, if he's clearly not going to win the Jim Thorpe. If he does not win the Biletnikoff, how can you give him the Heisman? If he's not the best at either of his positions, how do you give it to somebody against somebody like Ashton Jeanty, who is the best player at his position, who ranks first in every statistical category, who is his entire team's offense? Like, how do you give it to somebody who doesn't win either award for being the best at their position?
Well, he is a finalist up there. We are seeing that.
So here, guys, I think this is such this is much ado about nothing. I think this is the dumbest thing ever, and I know Deion is pounding the table for it. We see the Heisman given out to the best player in college football. Do we see the same player win the Doak Walker or, you know, the Maxwell Award, which is supposed to be for the same in a lot of circumstances, but you kind of like, they want to spread them out.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't think this is anything other than the Thorpe Award being like, you know what, he's going to win a lot of awards. Let's give it to one of these other three guys. I don't think it's a big deal. I get Deion campaigning for his player. I appreciate him doing that. He said he's going to give him his trophy, which is unbelievable. But I do think you have to remember, and I don't know if it's necessarily great, it's that everybody gets a trophy.
I was going to say, what is this, just a participation award now?
It is the reality of what it's been for the last 20 years. Or else you'd see a Heisman Trophy winner clean up all these awards. They just don't do that.
Well, we'll leave it there because we do want to get to some interesting news. Let's go ahead and welcome in 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, Andrew Ivins, for some really cool news out of college football this morning. And Andrew, it is great to see you. We are understanding that Stanford is hiring program legend Andrew Luck as the team's general manager. Tell us more.
Yeah, Pete Thamel from ESPN reported that this morning, and it's an outside-of-the-box move, but I think this is going to become the norm in college sports moving forward. We keep talking about college moving more and more to the NFL, right? And you're going to have a salary cap. We're going to have revenue sharing depending on what happens with the House settlement. And for Stanford, which has had 3 straight 3-9 seasons, they're looking to kind of turn things around here. And they welcome in Andrew Luck, who is obviously one of the greatest to ever do it at Stanford. And he's going to have that title of GM. But as Pete Thamel reported, it's a little bit different. It's kind of a distinct evolution for this role. He's going to be in charge of the entire football program. So that's going to include, you know, player personnel, recruiting, roster management, but also fundraising, you know, how the players and student athletes handle themselves there. So I think it makes a ton of sense. When you go on the Stanford athletic website, you kind of go through that athletic directory, you see a lot of former Olympic athletes there. This is what Stanford does. And they got to kind of figure it out, life in the new look college football, life in the ACC. So excited to see how this one plays out.
Awesome. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us here with a little bit of breaking news out of Stanford, as former Stanford legend Andrew Luck is hired as the team's general manager, now tasked with turning around that program that hasn't made a bowl game since 2018. More college football pregame when we return. It's chaos in the Big 12. We're breaking it all down for you next. We're back here on College Football Pregame, presented by Hellmann's, America's #1 mayonnaise. We have reached maximum chaos when it comes to the Big 12 Conference. Following Colorado's win yesterday, there are 6 teams still alive to make the Big 12 championship game. Those teams are as follows: Arizona State, Baylor, BYU, Colorado, Iowa State, and Kansas State. So let's go ahead and find ourselves the title game matchup. And we're going to go through some of these games that this whole scenario is reliant on, and we're going to pick the winner, and then that will be projected our Big 12 championship game, okay? Let's begin with Kansas at Baylor. Who you got in this one?
I would go Kansas. They're playing hot right now, so I'm going with the hot hand.
They're the biggest pick-me team in college football. At some point, it's gotta fade. And I think Baylor is a very underrated team right now that's improving just as much as Kansas, so I like Baylor.
Okay. That's what I was going to say. Baylor's won 5 in a row as well.
They're on a
Sawyer
heater.
Robertson, they're on a heater too. Playing at home, I like Baylor in this game.
I like Kansas. They're fighting for bowl eligibility as well, so this is a big game for them.
Yep, I'm going with you two as well. The consensus in this game will be Kansas. I can see them continue to play heartbreaker here. Moving on.
Jordan be the
I'm the tiebreaker. That's what they told me, okay?
Who made these rules?
West Virginia at Texas Tech now. Who are you going with?
Texas Tech. That offense and Taj Boyd, too much for West Virginia to handle.
Yeah, I like Texas Tech, too. I like their pass offense. I think they outweigh West Virginia.
I went with West Virginia. Garrett Green's been he's got a lot of moxie for a quarterback, but this was more of a Big 12 chaos play. Like, I don't have much conviction in it.
I'm going with Texas Tech. They exploded for 56 points last week. I think their offense keeps it rolling.
All right, 4-1. We're going with the Red Raiders in this one as our consensus. All right, moving on to number 16, Arizona State at Arizona. Who are you going with?
Arizona State's too much. Their story, the way that Levitz plays, Cam Scatterbo, they're on a roll right now. I'd have to go with Arizona State.
See, just when you think you can count on a Big 12 team to do what they're supposed to do, that's when you go the other way. Give me Arizona. They have the best player on the field with their wide receiver.
I don't hate it. Like, I actually like Arizona with the points, but I think Arizona State, man, they just can't collapse at the end. But they have been riding this.
I know.
Can they keep that emotion high? Can they keep it ramped up? Kenny Dillingham brings that energy. Cam Scatterbo, did you guys see his halftime speech? I don't know if you guys saw it last week. He's the emotional leader of this team. I think they ramp it back in a rivalry game. I think they win, but I think it's close.
I like Arizona State.
Yeah.
Scatterbo, he's been balling. He's a tough guy to bring down. But the key is they have to slow down McMillan. He went for 266 yards against them last year. So need to see a lot of double coverage.
I'm riding with the Sun Devils, too. By the way, we will have Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham live here on College Football Pregame a little bit later on in the show. We're looking forward to that. Moving on here to TCU at Cincinnati. Who are you rolling with?
I went with TCU, but I like Danny's pick a couple minutes ago. I don't have much conviction. And it felt right to me. I'm going with TCU.
Just all vibes. Straight
all
vibes.
vibes.
There's no money on this play. Do they cover? Probably not. Do they win? Yes.
I went with Cincinnati. They got a pretty good quarterback that's been playing pretty good, Brendan Sorsby. Bowl eligibility. That's a big one. I think we take for granted so many times to get there, give it a little bit better effort, but it was almost another chaos play, too.
I'm rolling with TCU. Cincinnati's been on a 4-game skid, and then that skid, they've only averaged 19 points, so I don't think they get it together today.
All right, consensus is TCU in that game. Here, 24 Kansas State at 18 Iowa State. We got a little bit of a split here, so I'm interested to hear.
I'm going Kansas State, and I've been down on Kansas State all year, but I think Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, they're going up against potentially one of the best defenses in the Big 12, but I think if they get the ground game going and they can run the ball efficiently, I think they can beat Iowa State.
See, I was the biggest Kansas State truther at the beginning of the season, and they just let me down week after week after week, and then I gave up. So now I think they owe me. I think it's time. As long as Avery Johnson just keeps the ball on the ground, stay on the ground, then they should be able to win this game.
They should be able to, but they got to go on the road, hostile environment. Jack Trice Stadium's going to be rocking. Have you guys seen Chris Hassel, our very own? He's been trolling Iowa State's fans, being like, their nervous energy is going to impact the Cyclones. I don't think so. Rocco Beck has been awesome, is just a true sophomore for this team. Playing at home, I think Iowa State wins.
I like Iowa State in this one. Rocco Beck, his strength is throwing the ball across the middle of the field. Kansas State, their defense, their weakness is the middle of the field for their defense. So I think Rocco Beck has a huge day today.
All right, sold. Iowa State, I'm the tiebreaker in this one. Let's go ahead and get to our last game here. Houston at 19 BYU.
I'm going BYU. Yeah. They lulled a little bit. They lost it, but I think they pick it up. They find it. This Houston team isn't very good. I'm going with the Cougars.
I'm going with my good friend, Damien.
You know, Houston has pulled off some upsets this year, but they will not in Pro Bowl.
Okay, all right.
BYU. It's pretty simple. I think they roll over.
The interesting thing about this game, last game of the day, BYU will know. They'll know all these answers that we're talking about when they kick off at 10:15 Eastern. So I don't know how that plays into your psychology. Like if they're excited and they know, but what if they're bummed out?
What if you don't watch any of the games?
Right, they don't want to know.
There's no TVs and dialed in, locked in. All right. Well, with the consensus, of course, that game it'll end up being.
So
BYU.
who do we have? Do we have a
I'm going to tell you the projected championship game. With all of those outcomes, we would have a 4-way tie between Colorado, Arizona State, Iowa State, and BYU. But the Big 12 championship game would be between Arizona State and Iowa State. How do you see that game playing out if it comes to fruition, Danny?
I like Arizona State. The matchup I selfishly would like to see is Arizona State, Colorado.
Everybody.
Right, but I think Arizona State, I do think they're the best team right now with what they're playing. I actually took a bet of them to win the Big 12 a couple weeks ago, plus 400. So I'm rooting for that one to happen. But they are. Another thing, we talked about Camp Scatterbo. Sam Levitt has been playing awesome for them as well at quarterback. He's big, he's physical. I mentioned Kenny Dillingham, what he's brought and the excitement to this program. I do think Arizona State's going to win it.
Interesting. Okay, so with that answer, I'll come to you on this. Would Arizona State be worthy of a college football playoff berth?
Absolutely. I mean, the conference championship.
I was calling to Ken.
Ken, smoke them. Go ahead. Smoke them if you got them.
Come on.
No. I mean, I think they should be in. I don't think it should be pretty. I think Boise State should have that 4 seed if they go and win their conference championship. Obviously, selfishly, I think the only 3-loss Big 12 team worth seeing is Colorado in this playoff. I think they would be the most entertaining. Obviously, Arizona State, I mean, anyone who wins a conference championship in a Power 4, I'm going to give you your flowers.
So you would have Boise State getting the bye as well then?
Yeah. I mean, we looked at the average power ranking of all these conferences, and just based off the Big 12 and the parity that they have, like, they are just below the Sun Belt in average power ranking. I mean, you have the SEC, the Big 10, you have the the ACC up there as well, and then you have the Sun Belt, and then you have the Big 12, just based off all the parity going on.
The last 2 years, the Big 12 does have a winning record against the SEC.
And we will put a bow on this conversation with that. Thank you, Danny Kanell. All right, just getting started. Hour 1 underway of our college football pregame coverage. When we return, last time we're putting you head-to-head best bets of the season. I love it. get you some fresh HQ headlines. We start in the NFL, where the Kansas City Chiefs are the first team to clinch a spot in this year's playoffs. They did it with a 19-17 victory over the Raiders on Friday evening, forcing a fumble on Las Vegas's final drive of the game. The Chiefs have now made the playoffs in 10 straight seasons. That's just one shy of tying the Patriots for the all-time record. Elsewhere in the NFL, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy is listed as questionable for Sunday night's game against the Bills, but is expected to play. He missed last week's loss to the Packers with a shoulder injury. While Purdy is expected to play, San Francisco will be without Nick Bosa for a second straight week due to a hip and oblique injury. Speaking of quarterbacks, though, Trevor Lawrence is also listed as questionable for Sunday's showdown against the Texans. He's missed the past 2 games with a left shoulder injury. Head coach Doug Peterson expressed optimism about Lawrence returning with the Jaguars coming off their bye week. In college football news, Stanford is hiring program legend Andrew Luck as the team's general manager. That's according to ESPN. A former Cardinals star will return to Palo Alto, where he won a Maxwell and Walter Camp Award as a player. He'll be tasked with turning around a Stanford team that hasn't made a bowl game since 2018. And in college hoops, number 13 Purdue pulled off a last-second victory over number 23 Ole Miss on Friday night in San Diego. Miles Colvin's putback with a half-second remaining secured an 80-78 win for the Boilermakers. Trey Kaufman-Wren added a game-high 25 points and 13 boards as Purdue improved to 7-1 on the year. Back here in college football pregame, Jordan Giorgio, Jeremy St. Louis with you. 1 hour down, 2 more to go. What do we have coming up?
Yeah, you know, I had a good sleep last night.
Yeah, you did.
Took it easy. You guys were all out doing your things, watching games.
Struggle bus.
Best bets from Danny and Mackenzie coming up. Chip's got some chaos scenarios for the final week of the college football regular season. And we're going to ask this question. Should Jalen Milroe go to the league, or should he go back for year 2? Michaela DeBoer. And Patrick Murphy is in Columbus for the game. Hour 2, college football pregame coming up. Welcome to Hour 2 of College Football Pregame Show, brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. Jeremy St. Louis with former Alabama running back.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, that's bad, right? We're off to a great start from Wisconsin running back James White. 2 former New England Patriots teammates. Got that part right. Okay, it is rivalry week, and we have championship matchups and bowl eligibilities to be decided. So let's talk, to start, underdogs to bark on Saturday. Damien, you like a little Palmetto Bowl upset here.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was called that. But I do like South Carolina over Clemson today. Listen, South Carolina's been playing like one of the best teams in the entire country these past couple weeks. They're a team that you don't want to catch right now. And with an opportunity to sneak into the college football playoff when nobody was expecting it, they're playing for a lot. And I know Dabo Swinney and Clemson is too, but I'm not so confident in this Clemson team. They've been down a lot more than what we've seen in years in the past. I think Lenora Sellers, Rocket Sanders, I think the South Carolina offense is too much. Plus, they've got guys like, remind me of the guy's name, Dylan Stewart, the edge rusher. They've got a great pass rush. They've got a great defense. I think they overpower Clemson today and get the win.
Wow, Dabo was on last week. And you're just
Listen, I haven't forgotten that he took 2 natties from me, so we might be cool, but we ain't all that cool yet.
By the way, with a win, South Carolina can become just the 4th FBS team with 4 ranked wins inside of 1 month. All right, so James, Missouri has held sway over Arkansas in their 15 previous meetings, winning 11, but you're on the Razorbacks for this one.
Mizzou is just one of those teams I do not trust. They're in that same category as Ole Miss. A lot of talent, a lot of expectation, but they seem to let you down. In Arkansas, they were able to take down Tennessee early on in the year. I believe Taylor Green could put a lot of stress on this Mizzou defense. He can use his legs, and he can throw the ball all across the yard. I think he'll have to have at least 60-plus yards rushing, over 200 yards passing, and they'll have to score a ton of points because Mizzou can't score at any given time.
All right, so road win there. An Arkansas win would be their first road win over Mizzou in 8 decades. Go back to 1944, so that's a bold move, my guy. That's a very bold move.
History, you know, has to be broken.
Let's go for the final week. We have Danny Kanell and Mackenzie Brooks going head-to-head in the cave. DK, I got to ask you, what happened last week here? Kenzie went 3-0. What did you do, 1-2?
It's still under debate. We're not 100% sure. I think it might have been 2-1. I'm not sure.
You look a little casual for getting your butt kicked by a 23-year-old girl right now.
Last game of the weekend, I feel great. I feel really good about my place.
Clearly.
Yes,
Let's hear them.
All right, I will start it off with a game up in Syracuse. A lot at stake for the Miami Hurricanes. Chance to make the playoffs, ACC, all of it that goes with it. I think this is going to be a track meet. Again, you don't have to deal with weather in the dome. You're playing on the turf. Cam Ward, we know what Miami's offense is capable of. Xavier Restrepo, Damian Martinez. But Syracuse's offense might be just as good. Kyle McCord, the transfer from Ohio State, is up there, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country in touchdown passes. Miami's defense has been vulnerable at times. I think it's a track meet back and forth. Give me over 67.5 points.
I don't disagree with that play. That is a lot of points, but I support you there, actually, for once. I'm going to go to back to the well. Notre Dame team total over 30.5. Now, they are playing USC, who's probably one of the better defenses that they have played. But again, they're still rooting for style points. This team constantly trying to make up from that loss in week 2. And again, USC also hasn't played a million awesome offenses. Like, this USC defense might be humbled here as well. So again, this is a number they've gone over in 7 straight games. They're averaging 43 points per game on the road. If this number was 33.5, 34.5, maybe I'd feel differently. But 30.5 is something they can do in their sleep.
One of my favorite moments from last week was seeing Cal quarterback, after beating Stanford in the game, one of the oldest rivalries in football, say, tears in his eyes, saying, I just went 98 yards with my boys to come back from that game. He finished strong. You bring that emotion with you, that confidence to Dallas to take on SMU. I think SMU wins, but they just need to win. They know that. They just want to hold serve, just win. I think Cal gets a cover in this game. Give me Cal in the 13.5 points.
Danny, I mean, I believe that's called a letdown spot. I mean, after what you went through last week, I think this is an absolute letdown spot. I understand this Cal defense is improved, but to what extent? What was the bar? You know, this SMU offense continues to give me no reason to fade them. I'll take their team total overs. I'll take their spreads when I'm doing too well with the team totals. Now we're on the spread train. If it's under 2 touchdowns, I'm willing to take it here. This is just such a dominant force. Ever since they made the quarterback change against BYU, this team has been phenomenal, and I'm going to back them all the way. This is the last week, so I got to stick to my guns here with SMU and Notre Dame.
All right, last play for me. This is an emotional play, right? You look for a lot of times you look for some of these games, like some teams are trying to get to bowl eligibility. One of the bits of news that came out this past weekend, surprising to some, was Mack Brown being fired by North Carolina Tar Heels. But one thing that's pretty unique, a lot of coaches would have been like, all right, see you later. Mack Brown is going to coach the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill in a rivalry game for his last game, potentially ever, as a college football coach. He's 73 years old. I think Carolina rises, meets the moment against NC State. NC State has fallen well short of expectations. Amarian Hampton, the running back for North Carolina, I think he puts this team on his shoulders. I think Carolina gets the big win for Mack Brown. I'll lay the 3.5.
All right. I'm here for the vibes play. I like a good story. Okay, I'm not always the villain here. Actually, I'm about to be the villain. I'm going Army. Team total under 31.5. Now, this is just my way of backing the UTSA Roadrunners, which nobody's talking about, but this team is playing phenomenal football. They're on a great hot streak. They're putting up so many points, and in turn, I just think this offense is going to be on the field so often that Army just can't put up that many points. This is a UTS running defense or rush defense that ranks 11th nationally, 3 yards per carry. Like, they are stopping teams, and that's exactly what you want to do against a team, a military service academy going up to West Point. So they'll certainly give them a hard time here. And this isn't a number that Army has eclipsed in this entire month. Haven't done it the past 3 games, so it just feels a little optimistic. I love the UTSA Roadrunners this weekend.
Do you know what's at stake, by the way? Because we're all going Indy. I already made dinner reservations at a great steakhouse. Whoever loses is buying dinner for the crew.
Whoa!
Yeah, that's right.
What were the bets the rest of the year? Because I'd be up.
It's all at stake right here. Are you scared?
No.
All right, there you go. There you have it. All right, Jeremy, back over to you guys in the studio.
All right, thanks. Good luck, Danny, because you're going to need it this final week. Just saying it. Danny Kanell, Mackenzie Brooks giving us their plays. So, all right, we've got some breaking news, injury news concerning the game between Michigan and Ohio State. Look, we haven't seen cornerback Will Johnson since October 19th. He suffered the toe injury versus Illinois. Out again for the game. Colston Loveland also out, but obviously Will Johnson. I mean, Damien, we haven't seen him since the 19th battling that toe injury. There was concern that maybe he was saving himself for the NFL draft, but they said, no, he's going to come back. He wants to come back, but Sharon Moore said earlier this week, we'll see. Well, here we are on game day, and he's not going to be a part of this game.
Well, I may not necessarily agree with it, but I look at it from this perspective. Will Johnson's draft stock can only go down by playing. Like, he's shown that he's one of the most elite cornerbacks in all of college football. And even taking into account, if you miss all that time and then you come back and you're matched up with Jeremiah Smith as your first test, well, that's something that can also make your draft stock go down. So with the opportunity that Will Johnson has, again, like I said, I might not necessarily agree with it, but I see where he's coming from. He's worried about getting to the next level. He doesn't want to put any bad film on tape for GMs or coaches to look at and be like, oh, well, he wasn't playing so well towards the end of the season. No, he wants to go in, prepare himself, go into the draft process healthy, and that way teams can just pick him and be confident that he's going to be ready to go start day one at training camp.
I see this as a business decision. I understand it. You have a toe injury. You don't want to go out there and re-injure it and put yourself behind the 8 ball when it comes to your draft stock, and you don't want to put the bad tape out there. This Ohio State offense can put a lot of stress on this Michigan defense, and they'll go at Will Johnson. They won't be scared of him because he's coming off of that injury. So I understand it. Like Damien said, I may not have made that decision, but I understand this is the new era of college football. These guys they're businessmen, and they're going to do what's best for them and for their finances.
What about Colston Loveland obviously being out? Another big loss here for.
It's like their only option in the passing game. Right? So we're going to go back to James's point. Donovan Edwards and Khalil Mullings, they're going to be the saving grace for this Michigan team. Like, Davis Warren doesn't have any options to get the ball to. All he's got to do is not turn the ball over, hand the ball off to his backs, and hopefully they can have a great day so this game can be competitive.
And Colston Love is one of the best tight ends in all of college football. He is their best target as far as receiving. This is a big loss for them. I'm not sure how they throw the football. I think Sharon Moore, he's going to have to bring out trick plays. Everything's going to have to come out the bag, and everything's going to have to be on the table. Davis Warren, he's going to have to play a near-perfect game, no turnovers, be efficient in order to give themselves a chance to win.
James, you remember that game we played in Buffalo when we threw the ball, once or twice? Yeah. That's what Michigan needs to do. We beat Buffalo because we just ran the ball and we kept the ball out of Josh Allen's hands, and we just controlled the time of possession. We always had the ball in our hands. So that's the type of approach that we've been a part of. Michigan need to do some of that today, and just to try to keep the ball out of Ohio State's hands, because they are so dynamic when it comes to the skill position at the quarterback position. Just don't give them the ball.
Michigan's not afraid to do that. Just last year when they played Penn State, they ran the ball pretty much like twice the entire second half. So I can guarantee that's their recipe. And if the run game doesn't work, then this game can definitely get out of hand.
Look, Ryan Day, it's on a silver platter. If you can't beat Michigan today, it's not going to happen for you. All right. Oregon finished their regular season against Washington Saturday evening, a team that Dan Lanning has never beaten in his time with the Ducks, but Dylan Gabriel hopes to change that and tie a record held by a former Oregon quarterback. We'll talk about that. And speaking of quarterbacks, is Jalen Milroe headed to the league, or should he take a second year under Kalen DeBoer? And what about Garrett Nussmeier? What does Brian Kelly need to do to convince him to come back for another season? More college football pregame on the other side. Welcome back to College Football Pregame, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Ole Miss claimed their 66th Egg Bowl Friday afternoon with a 26-14 win over Mississippi State. That keeps their slim college football playoff hopes alive. Rebels quarterback Jackson Dart became the Ole Miss passing yards leader, going 14 of 24 for 143 and a score. And he passed Eli Manning. Dart now has 10,213 passing yards, and with a bowl game to come and possibly the playoff, that number will grow. And when you pass any Manning in any record book, you light up a cigar.
In slow-mo.
In slow-mo, yeah. Eli's record, by the way, stood for 21 years. Eli did record a video congratulating him afterwards. Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel remains a long-shot Heisman candidate, but he's more focused on winning a national championship. Saturday, he leads the undefeated Ducks versus Washington in the 117th Cascade Clash. Gabriel starts Saturday significant because it ties him with Bo Nix for most career FBS starts with 61, a record he will break in the Big Ten title game. All right, back here in the studio with Damien Harris, Danny Kanell, and James White as college football pregame continues. Let's rip through some storylines here. So we mentioned Nix tying the start record, or Dillon tying the start record, but he's coming off a game last week where he was not responsible for a single touchdown, just the third time in his career that has happened. What type of a response are you expecting from him, this Oregon team today?
A proper response. I don't expect it to be they just come out and blow the doors off and just score 60 points, because when we looked at Oregon all season long, there have been times where we thought they figured it out and they got the offense clicking on all cylinders, but then there's times again where Dillon Gabriel and this offense look kind of stagnant and they do just enough to win. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. Them coming out, doing enough to get a win. Dillon Gabriel's going to put up some average but good numbers. He's probably not going to turn the ball over, hopefully, for this Oregon team, but I don't think it's going to be some come out 50-point blowout victory coming out party today. That's not what I see for Oregon.
By the way, no one has talked about this game at all. I don't think it's an upset, but it's just one of those ones where I'd be like, I can't believe we didn't talk about that game. Dillon Gabriel, I think it's been very businesslike. Like, he's a professional quarterback. He's been in there for 6 years. He's made a lot of money, and this is what they brought him in for. The leadership, consistency. You know exactly what you were going to get for him, and he's delivered.
It's going to be a tough matchup. We know who the defensive coordinator is for Washington. Steve Belichick. The Belichick family, they know how to exploit your weaknesses, so they're going to make Dillon Gabriel, I mean, he is left-handed. They're going to make him play right-handed. But they can play right-handed and, make him play to some of his weaknesses. It's going to be a tough matchup. Washington is a pretty decent football team, but Oregon will win this football game. Dillon Gabriel's been one of the most consistent quarterbacks throughout this entire season. He's one of the most quarterbacks I trust in the entire college football this year.
And you wonder who he's going to do for his coach today, because Dan Lanning has not beaten Washington in his time with Oregon. Seeking a 45th career win is Gabriel, which would tie Colt McCoy for second most on the all-time list. All right, LSU head coach Brian Kelly, hopeful to have Garrett Nussmeier back after they lost out on #1 QB Bryce Underwood. Here's what he said this week, basically just saying he's hopeful that they can get Nussmeier back after Underwood flipped to Michigan. I mean, Danny, looking at this, I mean, if you're Kelly, how do you convince Nussmeier to come back?
Especially after, oh, by the way, we were all in on the future with Bryce Underwood. Right? We lost him, so now we want you to come back. Like, good luck trying to get him back. He's shown flashes. The one thing I do like out of him, a very short memory. He can make all the throws. He doesn't crater under the pressure, but he has struggled with consistency as far as interceptions. He struggled, made some bad throws. I think he would make big steps forward if he comes back, but if you're him, the situation we just talked about, don't you want to go in somewhere that probably wants you a little bit more than LSU does, where it feels like your second fiddle?
Well, don't you also want to go somewhere where you have better options? LSU doesn't have a ton of talent at the wide receiver position. They don't run the ball very efficiently. Defensively, this is one of the worst LSU defenses that we've seen in a very long time. And when you look at what Brian Kelly is doing, it looks like he's losing the program. He's losing the players. He's losing the culture. So if you're Garrett Nussmeier, what reason do you have to come back on top of what you just said? They were all in on Bryce Underwood. Garrett Nussmeier was a thing of the past before he even got out of Baton Rouge, and now they're like, oh no, we love you so much, we're so hopeful that you come back. That's not true. That's Brian Kelly being the son of a politician. I'm gonna call it what it is. I'm gonna call a spade a spade. Now that they lost their future, now they're trying to backtrack and keep Garrett Nussmeier there. Well, I think he's too smart. I hope he's too smart, and he can see through all of this and realize he would have a much better opportunity if he goes somewhere else.
I think he should stay.
No.
That's the nature of college football. They're trying to recruit guys to replace you. If they don't, then your program's going to get left behind. You're going to try and recruit the top prospects. I like Garrett Nussmeier. I feel like he fits Brian Kelly's system. This kid's throwing for 250 yards in every game except 2. He does have the interceptions and whatnot, but he's a very talented quarterback. Stay put. Get another year in college. You can help get some talent at the receiver position. LSU, they got some long money over there. They can bring some talent to help them out. Kyron Lacey and guys like that. I think he should stay there at LSU. Why are you making that face?
That's a great thing about being Brooksy. You know what I got something to But LSU hasn't done well in the transfer portal. Yep. They haven't done well with NIL and going out and getting guys. They're actually losing commits, especially after they lost Bryce Underwood. So when we're talking about, yes, they do have opportunities to bring guys in to surround Garrett Nussmeier, can you be confident as Garrett Nussmeier that that's actually going to happen?
If he stays. If he stays.
I will say this. He is a guy who stayed and waited for Jaden Daniels. Like, he waited for this opportunity. So maybe he's a little bit out of character, and he says, you know what, instead of going somewhere else, I'm going to keep getting better here and help elevate LSU.
And you just wonder, if he doesn't stay, what does that mean for Kelly moving forward in terms of being on a hot seat as a coach heading into next season? All right, speaking of quarterbacks coming back, Jalen Milroe might be playing in his last Iron Bowl, the Tide going for their 5th straight win in the series versus Auburn. Milroe's appearing in mock drafts for the NFL, including those done by our crew here. Should he go, or is this a world where he comes back for a second season under Kalen DeBoer, James? What do you think?
I think he needs to stay for another season under Kalen DeBoer. He took a step back as far as throwing this year. The best thing that he does is throw the deep ball, and this year has been very inconsistent. His completion percentage is about the same from last year. Get another year under Kalen DeBoer's system. Hopefully next season, they don't use him just to run the ball almost every other play. He works on his passing game, build that connection with Ryan Williams, get some more talent at the receiver position. I think he puts himself in a better position for next year's draft.
James, I can see why Bill Belichick liked you, because you're steady. You're steady, no chaos. You just do your damn job. I love it.
I'm torn on this. I think Jalen Milroe should absolutely return to college because I do not think he is NFL ready. With the regression that we've seen with him throwing the football, I don't think he's ready to make those passes at the next level. Should he return to Alabama? That I'm not so sure about, because when we talk about pairing him with Kalen DeBoer is supposed to be a quarterback guru. He is supposed to help guys figure out how to read defenses, how to deliver the ball in spots where they need to be there at an efficient level. That has not happened. He has regressed even. He can only throw the deep ball, to James's point. So even with a year under his belt, I know maybe it takes 2 years, but we're talking about a different landscape. We're talking about kids having different mentalities. We're talking about kids thinking business first instead of team first. So if I'm Jalen Milroe and I'm thinking, okay, I just got a head coach who is supposed to make me the best quarterback that I can be, and I have regressed and I have not played as well throughout the season, I might look at an option to go somewhere else.
I'm with you. I think this is one of the best aspects of NIL, because years past, you might want to make a decision to go get that big payday in the NFL. The moment you get it, whether he comes back to Bama, I lean with you, Damien, go into a system that maybe fits his skill set better. Michael Penix was one of the best pocket passers we've seen in the last decade. I mean, he was elite working within the pocket. Jalen Milroe, that's where he needs to develop. And if Kalen DeBoer watched him every day in practice and finally was like, you know what, our best chance to win is have him run, that, to me, says that Kalen DeBoer sees a deficiency and he didn't love it. So maybe go to a place that's going to utilize your skill set as a runner, but also build a system around you that works that play-action pass a little bit more, maybe some of those option concepts where you can play into your strength, and you can go make a lot of money doing that, too. So I think he comes back for another year of college.
What about a big win today in the Iron Bowl versus Auburn? What does that do for Alabama's CFP hopes?
Well, I mean, with the position that they're in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat. You have to win just to control what you can control. Obviously, the rest is beyond that. I mean, you got to look at what happens in the ACC, potentially some more things, some more shakeup in the Big 12. But all Alabama can do to continue to keep their playoff hopes alive is just win, and they got to do that today.
It's a must-win game. I mean, you talk about an offseason that would be so long, whatever, I don't want to say garbage, but whatever bowl you're going to, like, good luck trying to get those players to want to play in it. This is an absolute must-win game. As far as it comes to the playoff conversation, I think it firmly cements them right on the bubble. And that's where they're going to have to be, and Kalen DeBoer is going to have to campaign. They have to say, look how tough our schedule is. Watch out for South Carolina, who they did beat, but remember, it was close, and Carolina's this hot team now. So that's the team I think that will be really interesting. If that would be a much better win, too, against Clemson, a top 15 opponent on the road, more so than your rival where you're a 2-touchdown favorite at home. But you got to start campaigning, and I think they need style points if they can get them.
Absolutely. And then I just want to highlight one more time, because we're mixing our conversations here. If you lose this game and I'm Jalen Milroe, why would I want to come back? Why?
I mean, I think he might dip his hat into the draft, possibly, too. I mean, he's a guy who will destroy the combine. If you see a guy like Anthony Richardson, who got drafted top 5 with, a limited amount of playing in college, why not? I'll go run a 4-3, throw the ball 70 yards down the field. Somebody
Which he does very well.
Somebody might take a chance.
All right. Good stuff, gents. Sit tight because we still have a lot more discussion to come because it's the final weekend and we're heading towards the final rankings for the CFP. Chip Patterson is going to pop by to give us some of his latest edition of Chaos Scenarios. And Ohio State's inability to beat Michigan has been hanging over Ryan Day during his entire Buckeyes tenure. But is that about to change? We'll set up the 120th edition of The Game when the pregame show continues. Welcome back to College Football Pregame, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When we talked chaos last week with Chip Patterson, Week 13 delivered. Just ask the folks in the SEC. And Chip's back with some more chaos scenarios as we head into the final week of the regular season. The commander of chaos, Chip Patterson, here to walk us through some potential CFP chaos scenarios. Okay, Chip, let's start with the ACC. And when it comes to some of these teams, you're saying there's a chance. Walk us through chaos here.
Yeah, this is nightmare fuel for the ACC right here in Week 14. Okay, it's going to start with Miami losing to Syracuse. Of course, we know that that would put Clemson into the ACC championship game. But, what if Clemson enters that ACC championship game having just lost to South Carolina? And then just to make things worse for the reputation, the rankings, what if SMU loses to Cal in an upset here in Week 14? Then in the ACC title game, 9-3 Clemson beats 10-2 SMU in that ACC title game. So what has happened here? I think number one, that means Clemson obviously gets an automatic bid, but maybe not even the bye, as the Tigers are ranked behind Boise State in the current rankings. Then the question becomes, you've got a 10-3 SMU ACC runner-up. You've got a 10-2 Miami that didn't get to play for the conference title. Those teams are on the bubble. And I wonder, Jeremy, do either of them make it? Is this the scenario that leaves the ACC with just one team when they could have three? Is this the scenario where South Carolina, which in this scenario would have just beat Clemson, or Alabama with the win in the Iron Bowl, could be able to get in? Is this how the ACC is a one-bid league? Possibly, if all these upsets take place.
Okay, so, but on the other side of this, Chip, I mean, when you look at Clemson, South Carolina, right, basically the fight for an at-large bid, the winner has the chance here. Is this what the committee was dreaming about when it came up with the 12-team playoff, to have a game like this, rivalry week, that could decide an at-large bid?
Yeah, one of many. I mean, there are spots all over this Saturday schedule where the committee talked about games mattering and having playoff implications in a way that we're not there with the 14 playoff. And that is true. I will say the interesting aspect for Clemson is that ACC championship path, because you can lose to South Carolina, and you can, if Miami loses to Syracuse, still be able to make the college football playoff. I think it's that every avenue in that does allow the playoff committee to be able to find ways to put the teams they want into the playoff. But yes, look, the Palmetto Bowl doesn't need anything extra, but good gravy. This is like more impact and more implications that we've had in a Clemson, South Carolina game in decades, and I'm fired up for it.
Yeah, it's going to be great today. Okay, last chaos scenario I want to talk about. Chip, I have to ask you, are we paying enough attention to the potential chaos around this fourth bye?
Yeah, this is where I think that the way the bracket is set up is fundamentally broken, could be revealed. Here's how it starts. It starts with UNLV. They take care of business against Nevada. They make the Mountain West title game, but here comes UNLV beating Boise State in that Mountain West title game, avenging the loss that they had earlier in the year. Then, late night in Provo, we get into the chocolate milk, and Houston takes down BYU, which would then send Colorado to the Big 12 title game to play against Arizona State. That's what Buffs fans want to see. Then, Colorado beats Arizona State to claim the Big 12 title. So here's what we would have. It would be 11-2 UNLV, which just beat Boise State, going up against 10-3 Colorado, which just beat Arizona State for the fourth and final bye in the automatic bid process of this playoff format. So whoever the committee slots higher would end up getting a bye. Whoever the committee slots lower would be the 12 seed. And it could be just one spot in those final rankings. So if you've got a UNLV and you've got a Colorado and they navigate their way to conference championships, they could be simply 11-12 or 12-13. And yet the difference in path would be playing the Big Ten runner-up or getting a bye all the way to the quarterfinals. If the difference between teams is that small, the difference between path should not be that large. The bracket format is broken, and this chaos scenario would reveal that.
I hope it's a 4-liter thing of chocolate milk. Well, what is that, a gallon, I guess? I'm thinking of my Canadian terms. Chip Patterson talking chaos scenarios with us here on the pregame show. We love a little chaos. And speaking of that, Jordan, how much chaos would there be in Columbus if Michigan was to come in and win the game?
I don't even want to know. So much has been at stake for so many head coaches across college football this season, but it seems as though the most pressure has been on Buckeyes head coach Ryan Day. Buckeyes have a chance to clinch their spot in the Big Ten title game, which is on CBS this year, but also in that 3-game skid to rival Michigan. For more on this game, let's go ahead and welcome in 24/7 sports contributor for Bucknuts, home of Ohio State football coverage. It is Patrick Murphy. Patrick, great to see you. You are live for us out in Columbus, Ohio, ahead of this big game. How much pressure are Buckeye fans actually putting on Ryan Day today?
You got to get it done. That's as simple as you can put it here in Columbus. This is a Michigan team that is not the same level as the last couple of years. There have been injuries to this Michigan team. Ohio State is the number 2 team in the country. I think Ryan Day has handled everything correctly this week in the buildup to this game, but the mental hurdle of getting over these last 3 losses against Michigan, beating your rival when you're expected to beat them, by a large margin, I think is going to be one of the big things that will come out of this game. Can the Buckeyes get over that hump, do what they're expected to do, and get to that Big Ten championship game, as you mentioned, end the losing streak to Michigan? That's everything here in Columbus, as Ryan Day put it this week.
Yeah, they'll lean on Will Howard to do so as well. He is participating in Senior Day today in this game. If Will Howard can help Ohio State beat Michigan, punch their ticket to Indy, how will he be remembered in Columbus?
A legend. I mean, you look at the guys who haven't beaten Michigan. You know, C.J. Stroud, a two-time Heisman Trophy finalist, never won against Michigan. Kyle McCord, obviously, transferred to Syracuse, but had the Buckeyes close last year, couldn't get the job done up in Ann Arbor. You bring in Will Howard, a guy who has embraced being a Buckeye, talked last week and this week about what this rivalry means. He's a kid who grew up in Pennsylvania watching the Big Ten. He was a Penn State fan, but he's aware of what this rivalry means. He said he always wanted to go to the game. Now he gets to play in the game. So if he pulls out this job and can get it done, he will be remembered like the Troy Smiths, the JT Barretts, the Craig Krenzels, all of these guys who have beaten Michigan and gone on to do big things.
Wow, would be a dream come true, I'm sure, on Senior Day as well. Patrick, give us your prediction in this game.
Yeah, for me, I think it comes down to, does Ohio State manage the trenches the way you expect them to? It's been a weird year for Ohio State's offensive line. So can they manage to hold up against Michigan's defensive line? I think other than that, the Buckeyes have the advantage pretty much everywhere else on the field. I picked Ohio State to win big. I think it was something along the lines of like 42-10. If Ryan Day has the chance to run the score up, he will do it, I imagine. So if the Buckeyes have the opportunity, I think it's a big win at Ohio State.
All right, Patrick Murphy, contributor for 24/7 Sports for Bucknuts, home of Ohio State football. Thanks so much for joining us here in College Football Pregame, breaking down and previewing the big game out in Columbus. Make sure you could check out all 24/7 Sports for all of your college football needs, latest news, transfer portal updates, and of course, everything recruiting. And speaking of recruiting, it's almost that time. December 4th is National Signing Day. Tune in to 24/7 Sports YouTube page for complete coverage beginning at 10 a.m.
Well, the Iron Bowl between Auburn and Alabama, one of the top 10 rivalries in all of college football. It's provided us with some historic moments. Will we get more historic moments today? We've gotten a little bit of trash talk. We're going to discuss the rivalry and the chatter next. Well, this final weekend of the regular season in college football is rivalry week, but it's also a chance for us to get a look at some of the goofy trophies in college sports. And the Big Ten, and I say that tongue-in-cheek because these are actually pretty awesome. Let's start in Bloomington, where number 10, Indiana, will battle 1-10 Purdue for the old Oaken Bucket for the 98th time, their 126th meeting overall. The name of the trophy refers to a sentimental poem written in 1817 by Samuel Woodworth that goes like this. How dear to this heart are the scenes of my childhood when found recollection presents them to view. The orchard, the meadow, the deep tangled wildwood, and every loved spot which my infancy knew. And even the rude bucket that hung in the well, the old oaken bucket, the iron-bound bucket, the moss-covered bucket which hung in the well. I know you're better for hearing that. Next up, let's go to number 23, Illinois, facing Northwestern for the 118th time. The winner taking home the Land of Lincoln trophy in the shape of Abraham Lincoln's top hat, which they've done since '09. The hat replacing the Sweet Sioux Tomahawk, which had been awarded from 1945 to 2008. Lincoln's more culturally appropriate stovepipe hat replica was designed by Dick Tracy cartoonist Dick Locker and was cast by sculptor Don Reed. Let's go to USC and their annual rivalry game versus Notre Dame for the Jewel Shillelagh. The Shillelagh, the Irish club made of oak or blackthorn saplings from Ireland. This one has "From the Emerald Isle" engraved on the end of it. The trophy, introduced in 1952 to commemorate the first game in the series, played on December 4th of 1926. The two teams have split the two games played under their two current head coaches. Okay, whenever you have rivalry games, you always get trash talk. And as Auburn and Alabama get set to face one another in the 89th Iron Bowl, we got some of that this week. The Tide have won 4 straight meetings, 6 straight versus Auburn in Tuscaloosa. But after a shocking loss to Oklahoma last week where they didn't even score a touchdown, the Tide are reeling. And at least one Auburn player doesn't think one of the Tide's young stars is anything special.
Ryan Williams is Ryan Williams. I mean, yeah, he's electric. He's all this and that, but in my eyes, he ain't really nobody to me. Ryan Williams is himself. He ain't no big time player to me. I was just telling the team, like, bro, y'all don't take this team as like this, that, like, you know, they're beatable. Like, we still got something to fight for. You know what I'm saying? So, going into this game, I'm just gonna be balls to the wall every time. Cause like I said, Bama is a big rival team. Every rival team I played, I never lost to, and I will not lose to Bama while I'm here.
I don't even know what that is, but I mean, let them talk. I mean, it's a part of it. You know, it's all about just executing what we need to do so we can be our best us this weekend. But yeah, I mean, good on him.
Give them the old don't know your name trick. All right, you hear it all the time. Look, guys, don't give opposing teams bulletin board material. Damien, why is a freshman linebacker going into his first Iron Bowl against Alabama giving out bulletin board material?
You know, that's a good question, because the Alabama way is you take clips like that and you post them on every weight rack, you post them on every locker, you post them on the practice field, you post them everywhere. And I'm sure that's exactly what they did. But, you know, this is a part of the game. This is a part of what rivalries are all about. Like, when you get to this week, that's when all the dislike you have for that team you're playing against comes out, and sometimes in a case like this, it comes out in the media. Now, I don't know if I would have said all of that now. Like, he went deep into it, calling guys out by name, but I thought Jalen Milroe on the other side of it, he handled it perfectly. I might have thought his trash talk was a little bit better. Like, I don't know who that guy is. You know what I mean? But hey, you know, I'm going to just go out there and play my game. But you know, you love the trash talk, you love the rivalries, you love the competitiveness. Now we just want to see a great game on the field.
Did either one of you gues talk any trash? Because you guys seem so, like, humble, reserved here. You don't seem like big trash talkers.
Nah.
What about...
No, not me.
He's pretty reserved for the most part, but if you get him going,
that's the problem, though. Don't get me going. Don't get me going.
But, like, in game, I probably would assume that's when, if you did chatter, that would be during the game, especially because I was not a big trash talker unless somebody started saying stuff to me during the game. Never during the week. I don't want to give anybody any more reason. Like, they want to beat you all the time, especially in a rivalry. Why would you give them added motivation as a quarterback? I was like, I didn't want to give them any motivation to take a cheap shot, to come after me, to get an extra hit in if they wanted to. So I always stayed really quiet, and then was kind kind of subtle and always wanted to be winning. Like, there was no chance I was going to say anything if we were losing. But once we started to win, that's when I would let them know about it. But it is an added source of motivation. Did you, James, did you ever have points where you remembered somebody calling you out saying, we're going to shut this guy down, we're not going to let him do anything, where it added some motivation?
Nobody really said anything in the media as far as slowing me down, but I do remember, you know, after Super Bowl 51, we ended up playing the Falcons the next year, and I put a lot of stress on one of their safeties, Keanu Neal. So when we played them, I was routing them up quite a few times. When we played them again in the regular season the next season, we got matched up again. I got a draw play. He took kind of a cheap shot on me, hit me in my back, and then he was talking some trash. We were going back and forth, but it was all between the game. But you got to love it. I mean, obviously he felt some type of way about that, but in a big game, you know, didn't perform the greatest. So I respect it. Just a little competitive beef.
Did you, Damien, ever have somebody call you out to shut him down?
Yeah, but it wasn't because I was a trash talker. It was just because I ran so hard, and I just every time I ran the ball, like I just tried to run through somebody's face. Like, I'm not gonna steal Marshawn Lynch's quote, but I tried to hammer people. So guys started to be like, you know what? You're a young guy in this league. You think you're tough? Well, we're gonna test you a little bit. You know, I had the matchups with C.J. Mosley and just like all the great players, and especially playing for New England with this guy. Like, you're gonna get everybody's best shot anyways. But then the fact that I came into the league and, you know, I played well my first couple years and I was a real physical guy. Well, guys wanted to test that out, and guys definitely took some shots. But again, it was all between the whistles. It was all respectable, and it's just a part of the game. So I always enjoyed it. It was a compliment. Just like I'm sure, you know, if you're Jalen Milroe, if you're Ryan Williams, and you're sitting here listening to this guy talk trash, like, yeah, he's talking trash, but he's also complimenting you at the same time. Yeah. Because if you really weren't that good, then he wouldn't even mention you. Like, he didn't talk about a lot of other guys on the team because he's not worried about them. But those are two guys he's worried about. So obviously he calls them out. But again, it's just a part of the game, and that's why we love college football. That's why we love rivalry so much.
All right, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, where, you know, it's trying to get along, everyone's trying to be nice, be cordial, we're going to try to say something nice about our rival. James, what you got?
In Minnesota, they have a nice mall, I guess. They're the biggest mall in America, the Mall of America. They got roller coasters in there.
That's true.
That's about it.
That was nice. That was nice. That was nice.
You have to pick which rival you're going to say something nice about.
I'm gonna stay with the season. I'm gonna go, or stay with the theme of the week, and I'm gonna go Auburn. And I will say Jordan Hare has some weird voodoo in there. When you're an opposing team, it is hard as hell to win there. So you gotta. It's not a nice stadium by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they got a nice new jumbotron they put in a couple years ago, but it's a tough place to play for sure.
I'll go with the Florida Gators since we're playing them this week as well. There's nothing in my time, I wouldn't say anything nice about them, but they have developed one of the coolest, newer traditions in college football. Start of the fourth quarter when they turn the lights out and they put the lights on, and then they sing the Tom Petty, "We Won't Back Down." That, I'm like jealous of that one. I'm like, dang, I wish we had something like that in Tallahassee. It is awesome. So that's the nicest thing I'll say about the Florida Gators. Jeremy, I know you love us. You would never say anything bad about us.
Never. Of course not. I would never say anything bad about you guys. I wouldn't trash talk you. Not at all. You were a volleyball player. Did you trash talk at all?
Yeah, they don't know anything about high school volleyball rivalries. I mean, put me in the players round next time out there.
We're doing parlay picks with Mackenzie coming up next. College football pregame continuing here on CBS Sports HQ. Make every college football game mean more with FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet cashes. Scan that QR code to get started on America's #1 sportsbook. All right, time for Parlay Pick, and for that we bring in Mackenzie Brooks. And this is an interesting setup.
It is.
For the parlay play this week. I kind of like the simplicity here. Walk us through.
Yeah, this is called the first half money line 3-leg special here. Okay, you get in, you get out, you cash your ticket. We're going to start with Michigan State. They're playing Rutgers here. I'll tell you one thing about Michigan State. They'll start the game well. They'll start the game on top. They'll start the game fast. Second half, I have no business with, okay? This is a team that almost gave up a win to Purdue, okay? I leave that there and rest my case. Then we're going to move on to Duke, first half money line as well. They are crushing the first half, even when they're underdogs the past 3 games. First half money line cash against Virginia Tech, against Miami. Let's not forget about that. This is a good football team. Once we start realizing that, we will be making a lot more money. And then we're going to South Carolina to cover and win the first half as well. Look, I think they will give Clemson a run for their money. This is probably the best run D they've played, or run offense Clemson has played in a really, really long time. So I expect Sellers to use his legs. I expect the whole run offense to give Clemson a hard time, and they at least cover this first half.
And we don't get any late sweats.
No, we get in, we get out, we make our money.
We get out.
That's how we do it in rivalry weekend.
Parlay Pick presented by FanDuel here with Mackenzie Brooks. Of course, FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, as we recap it. As Mackenzie says, look, this is easy here. This is the quick first half parlay special. Get in, get out, get your money, and go do some shopping or something.
Yes.
Whenever
Black Friday, Cyber Monday shopping, if you will.
That's right. All right. Make every college football game mean more with FanDuel. New customers getting $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Scan the QR code to get started on America's #1 sportsbook. All right, that's it for me. What do we got coming up in the next hour, Jordan?
Oh, we've got a lot coming your way. You don't want to miss Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham joining the program right after the break ahead of their rivalry game against Arizona. Josh Pate is going to join us live from College Station. I'm going to ask him why he thinks the ending of the game in Athens last night was an embarrassment. Also, worthy or unworthy, Colorado worthy of a college football playoff berth, and it's our last one of the season, of the regular season. Saturday's must-bet parlay, our parlay party coming up on the other side. Don't go anywhere. CBS Sports HQ, where our college football pregame coverage continues, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Make every moment more. Thanks so much for spending your game day morning with us. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Damien Harris, Danny Kanell, and James White with you, entering hour 3 of our pregame coverage. We're excited to welcome another member of our crew live to the program. It's Josh Pate. He is live for us out in College Station.
On the side of the road.
On the side of the road. It's a little dangerous, making me a little nervous, so we'll try and get through this. Josh, it is great to see you. I'm excited to talk about the game that you are at today, a big rivalry game between Texas and Texas A&M. But I do want to start with what your thoughts were about how last night's game in Athens between Georgia Tech and Georgia was decided.
Classic game with a ridiculous ending is the way I saw it. I despise the way college overtime is formatted, and especially in games like that, and in most games that go to overtime, it's a shame because you've had a 4-quarter game played by, you know, normal rules of what we would call college football, and then it's like a circus director put together the format, like a 7-on-7 tournament director was allowed to put together the format for overtime. Georgia wins, horrifically officiated game. It's been a chronic issue across college football all year. I say that, though, and you got to be careful not to take away from an accomplishment, because, I mean, a team went out there and won a game. Black Friday atmosphere there in Athens, and so Georgia gets the win. I did notice there was a lot of points of contention taken with the way the spirit of the broadcast was presented and just the notion overall that Georgia, if they won the game, was a lock to make the playoff. I think they are a lock to make the playoff. I don't think if they lose 50-0 next week to maybe Texas A&M, they're out of it because they are going to be a top 10 seed going into it. But I understand this is the first time around the merry-go-round, so yes, technically there's not a lock of anything. But I loved watching the game. No eyeballs were turned off from the game. Listen to everyone excited rolling into town today. But I do just utterly despise with every fiber of my being the way we do overtime.
That's just why you're one of the most wrong guys in all sports, because that was awesome. Like, the only thing I would change, Pate, the only thing I would change is maybe start it back 15 yards back further. But it's not like we have a field goal kicking contest. They are running football plays where you have offense that comes into play, defense comes into play, and we see them both make big stops. What would you do to fix it? What's the solution to that, which I think is the most dramatic, exciting entertainment moment in any sport on the globe? What would you do to fix it, even though I don't think it needs anything?
I would just love to start out of scoring range. I would love to do alternating possessions. I don't have a problem with that. I would just love to start at the 50-yard line. I mean, listen, you know good as well as I do. If there's a fender bender behind me right now, I'm going to turn around and look at it. That doesn't mean it's great for the flow of traffic. Just because eyeballs are on something and attention is paid to something doesn't necessarily mean things are being gone about the best way they can be gone about. I hate the idea that you begin in scoring range. That's what I hate. Started at the 50. I don't care. You keep everything else the same. I also think if we did that, there would be enough variance thrown into the equation to where we don't have to get to 3 overtimes and just go like shootout, penalty kick style to decide a football game.
Well, Pate, getting out of the overtime conversation, we talked a little bit on the show about how Carson Beck has been improving the last couple weeks. Do you think the way he's played recently is playing himself back into potentially day 1 draft eligibility, day 2? Like, do you think that the way he's playing, he's continuing to elevate himself up the draft boards after he took a dip with his performance in the beginning and the middle of the season?
It's the first thing I try and do every week, Damien. When I'll be at these games, there'll be a lot of NFL draft and NFL scouting types at the games, and I'll ask them about guys like Carson Beck. I know the mock draft community has kind of wavered on him. I mean, candidly, their opinion hasn't. They've looked at him and they've sung pretty much the same tune all year. They look and say, yes, his performance has fluctuated. We're more about tools than overall performance and resume and body of work at the college level. We don't think that that's necessarily translating apples to apples to what we would ask him to do anyway. So they're still pretty high on him. And when I say high, I mean they're as high on him as they were last year. There's a reason he came back. He wasn't a slam dunk top 10 pick. I still don't think he is. We may see Quinn Ewers play today in that same kind of situation. I just don't think the opinions have fluctuated nearly as greatly on those guys from the decision makers as maybe the mock draft community would indicate.
Do you feel that it's fair that Texas A&M essentially has to beat Texas and Georgia to make it to the college football playoff?
Yeah, think that is accurate, which is a differentiator from what they were saying, and I agree with about Georgia last night. The difference is Georgia will begin next Saturday's SEC championship already in the top 10 conversation. I don't think they would fall out. With A&M, even if they win today, and that would be a monumental task, but even if they win today, what were they, number 20? I'm not sure they jump into the top 12. Therefore, I'm not even sure they enter next week inside the conversation. Therefore, if they lose next weekend, if they were to get there, that's not being dropped out of it. That's not being penalized for losing your conference title game. I also think this, I mean, I understand the playoff is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and I understand that we've got SEC championship implications. But just for a second, at some point today, I would encourage everyone to step back, understand this sport is built on rivalries. College football rivalries were around long before championship games and playoffs were around. And the fact that we got this one back is a beautiful thing. You've got 18, 19, 20-year-old folks who love this sport, who really weren't old enough to understand the magnitude of this particular game the last time it was played, and just the pure, unfiltered, unadulterated hatred that exists between these two fan bases. I drove from Austin to College Station yesterday. It's 2 hours. You might as well be driving from Russia to Sarasota in terms of the difference in culture and the way that people feel about each other. It's so beautiful.
Hey, I want to switch gears here, and I want to get into the Texas quarterback controversy, because we're hearing a lot of reports that Quinn Ewers in this ankle injury. Obviously, we saw him last week. He was very limited mobility-wise. And when I go back to the Texas game against Georgia, that was the first time where we saw Sark make the decision to make a change at quarterback, put Arch Manning in. With such high stakes on the line today, do you think Quinn has a shorter leash to be replaced by Arch, or do you think he still gets that same leash of, okay, well, as long as it's not 2 or 3 scores out of hand, we're going to stick with Quinn?
I think Sark looks at it as a game-time decision. I think a lot of that organization looks at it as a game-time decision. I got to tell you now, even though it was Thanksgiving, I was hitting a lot of people up trying to get intel on that. And the ones that would normally be forthcoming, albeit if you agree to keep it off the record, even they were not forthcoming. So I think we're looking at a real game-time decision today. He's their starter for a reason, Damien, and if he's good enough to go, he'll go. I just think it is such a luxury that, number one, they have Arch, and number two, they've already had a situation this year where Quinn got pulled out of a game that he was healthy in. He just wasn't performing. So whether it's injury, whether it's lack of performance, if he came into today 100%, I don't doubt that coaching staff has full understanding, and that team has full understanding that if you don't perform, I mean, if you're a left tackle, we're going to yank you. If you're a middle linebacker, we're going to yank you. If you're a quarterback and you have the kind of depth they do, they're going to yank him. And I think that if you were to ask Texas A&M, they kind of look at that and say, we don't view it as any kind of advantage for ourselves if one is in versus the other, because much like Texas A&M's quarterback situation, they've popped different quarterbacks on folks at different times in the year, and those two different quarterbacks have presented two very uniquely different challenges in terms of their skill set.
Pay, we asked you earlier about A&M. If they lose, they're probably done. Mackenzie and I were arguing earlier because she said if Texas lost, there's no way the committee would drop them from 3 all the way out. And I just said, hold on a second. We don't know because we really haven't seen this. And then I was challenging on Texas's resume. What do you think happens if Texas loses?
I don't think they fall out. Last week I would have answered different. It's the same thing with Indiana. Last week I would have answered you different. But if we're judging resume, that's one thing. You're right. Texas, there would not be a lot of meat on the resume bone there for them. But then I have to judge it not in a vacuum, but in the rest of the pool. And I look in the rest of the pool, and are there 12, 13, 14 more qualified resumes? There probably won't be. And the one place you and I will agree on is that Longhorn logo matters a whole heck of a lot here. And so it is not blind resume. It's one eye peeking open at a blind resume, and they see, oh, this is Texas's resume. We're going to boost them. That absolutely will happen. And so with those two factors in place, I think she may be right on that. But here's the difference, Daniel. We're thinking about a Texas loss like 27-24. What if it was 41-14? It'd be crazy. But what if it were just emphatic, like Ohio State, a generation ago now, it seems, beat Wisconsin like 59-0 on conference championship Saturday. And it went from Ohio State's got no shot to Ohio State's a slam dunk to be in over the span of a few hours. That's how quickly the momentum of opinion can shift. I need to trademark that, momentum of opinion. Write that down, Gelby. But I think that could happen. Very unlikely.
All right, 6 sticking with the college football playoff talk here, we got to get to one game in particular where we were talking earlier. It seems like the stakes really couldn't be higher in Death Valley. Clemson hosting South Carolina. Are you confident, Josh, that the winner of this game is in the college football playoff?
Oh, I'm not confident of anything with either one of these teams. I have no idea. I feel like I'm watching two teams surf on a seesaw, and it could just swing either direction. I think it's interesting that this game happens in the early window. So we're about to kick this one off in a little while. I believe the rest of the day could radically change the prism through which we view this result. Now, if it's emphatic, like we were talking about previously either way, then I could see a situation where if South Carolina goes in there and they're up 30-10 in the fourth quarter, the overwhelming sentiment is we can't keep this team out. I could also see a situation where it's a dogfight either way, and then you're saying, all right, let's bookmark this, and let's wait and see what the rest of the day holds. There's this other one of several really interesting scenarios here in that Clemson could win today or lose today, but if Miami loses, they go to the ACC championship game. I'm interested in this scenario because this is the one that would have my friend Mr. Kanell there outside the building just punching air. If Clemson were to win today, they're already in the top 12, I believe. If they were to win today, they would probably, let's say, be a 10 or 9 seed. If they get their ticket punched to the ACC championship game and they're a 9 seed and they lose, I think that committee may drop them out, and that would be wrong because that would be punishing someone for losing their conference championship game. But I don't know that the ACC has that protection orb around it like the SEC and the Big Ten would in that similar situation. And I actually want to see that happen because I'm not crazy about this format, so I kind of want to see the thing blown up as early as we can possibly blow it up.
Pete, so in this rivalry, right, Dabo, he was on our show last week. He was pounding the table, trying to promote the ACC, promote his team. Well, what they have to do is they have to beat South Carolina first. They have to control what they can control. And when you actually look at the game, when you peel everything else back, drop the CFP conversation, drop Dabo's conversation promoting himself, who do you think wins this game and why?
I think South Carolina wins the game, and I think when I look at the trajectory of two teams, I think South Carolina's is undeniable. My problem with Clemson, or my big question mark on Clemson, is they have struggled to scale their performance. What I mean by that is if you look at their stat categories and not their resume, it's very presentable in a lot of areas. But then you filter it out, and you look at when they played Georgia and Louisville, which to me are the two best opponents they faced, they got owned. They weren't close games. They got owned. And then they've made their hay against inferior competition, which it's not a crime to do that. It's hard to beat good teams. But we're trying to figure out whether you are one of those good teams. And so you're facing one today in South Carolina. You're facing one that can really get after you off the edge. Not crazy about Clemson's offensive line this year, per se. I think South Carolina can wreck this game in that facet. Lenore Sellers is a total wild card. But I just think South Carolina's playing their best ball at the right time. And I really worry about Clemson's ability to scale their performance up against quality like top 15, top 20-ish competition, and I think South Carolina fits that description.
Speaking of chaos, there's been a lot of chaos in the Big 12 conference. Teams going down left and right over the last few games. How do you feel like that conference shapes out? Who ends up in the Big 12 championship?
Man, my best guess is Iowa State right now. I have no idea. What did we have? 31 different scenarios coming into today. Just God bless divisionless football. Probably brought to you by the same folks who brought to you the playoff format, but I digress. I'm not here to complain on this Saturday morning. I think Iowa State, Kansas State goes in there today to Ames. Iowa State's a very short, less than a field goal favorite. I think Kansas State's a much different team on the road and have been for a few years than they are at home. Iowa State went out there in the snow and got this one in Manhattan last year. I think they'll get it this year, and that will punch their ticket there. If they can get to Dallas, nice indoor climate-controlled environment, I think they've got the best skill set out of any of the remaining teams. I trust them at quarterback more so maybe than Colorado out of any of the remaining teams. So very, very slightly, and I want you to write this in light pencil, James. I want you to give me Iowa State and burn this footage if things go awry today.
All right, will do.
Hey, oh my goodness.
Last one for you, Pate. We know you've been able to be at a ton of rivalry games. Can you give us your 5 best rivalry trophies? Can you rank them for us?
The trophies, I love Floyd of Rosedale most of all. So that's the one that Iowa and Minnesota play for. Paul Bunyan's axe is wonderful. That boot, I don't know its name. The old brass spittoon, I like that one. All the Big Ten games have trophies, and some people hate on them. I actually think it's a brilliant idea. All those trophies have been around since 1732. Like Meemaw taught me about all these trophies. That's how long they've been around. Those are my top 4. What's a 5th one? Kanell, did y'all play for anything? Is there a trophy?
No, that's what we were saying. None of us really knew like what the trophy was or what the name was. We just played in the game.
I was going to ask Pate, do you know what the Iron Bowl trophy is? Because somehow I don't know.
It's like, what is it, the something sportsmanship award they handed out at a basketball game 3 months later? Most of y'all are going to the NFL by now. Who knows?
Faye, thanks so much for joining us each and every Saturday morning. We appreciate it. Have fun. It's a big one out in College Station. You can hear more from Josh every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can watch Josh Pade's college football show on YouTube. He has everything you need to know to be a part of the greatest game. Quick break for us here on CBS Sports HQ. Don't go anywhere, though. More from us on the other side when we dive deeper into the chaos that's going on in the Big 12 Conference right now when Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham joins us live. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. college football pregame here on CBS Sports HQ. We're taking you all the way up to those noon kickoffs with a ton of games today with so much at stake. And we have straight chaos going on in the Big 12 Conference right now. With the final week of the regular season here, 4 teams are tied atop of the Big 12 standings. 6 in total are still alive for a potential berth in the conference title game. Arizona State is one of those teams. The Sun Devils on the road today to face Arizona to keep their Big 12 championship hopes alive. We are so excited to welcome live here to college football pregame Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham, who joins us now. Coach, it is so great to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time on what we know is a very busy game day.
Yeah, sorry I lost you there a little bit, but no, it's exciting. I mean, our guys have put in a lot of work to get to this point. We have a special group of young men. We have a special group of guys who are extremely passionate about this game, extremely passionate about one another, and I'm just excited to see a group of guys come together with the hard work they put in to achieve something that nobody else thought was possible. And hopefully they're not done yet, and hopefully they go out there and play well today.
Coach, I remember talking to you when you were at Florida State and we got to meet, and I heard your passion for the game of football. And now to hear that passion carried over to a place where you grew up, a program that you went to, you were a student there, and now you've brought this program back on the national scene and a chance for a potential playoff spot. Can you just explain to the people kind of what it means to you to be where you are in Arizona State?
Yeah, obviously I'm born and raised 15 minutes from there. I coached high school ball 15 minutes from there. I grew up in the parking lot playing catch, tailgating, going to games, watching games. I grew up watching this game every Thanksgiving weekend. This is what you did. You watched this game, the Territorial Cup. So it's definitely bigger to me than just a job. It's a job that hopefully, you don't get fired from. It's a job that hopefully you don't have to leave. Hopefully you can just be here and build something that people want to join you, and that's unique in today's landscape of college football.
Coach, we've obviously seen what you have been able to do at this program, how you guys have been so successful throughout the season, but you've done something that I really want to shed some light on. And, I was told by a wise man once by the name of Nick Saban to stop looking for a blessing all the time and choose to be a blessing to someone else. You just recently got a nice little raise, and instead of taking that on a trip and spending that on something nice, you decide to reward your bonus to some off-staff members and, give them a little holiday bonus. Talk about what that moment meant to you, what it meant to the staff to receive that bonus. Just talk about how special that was for you to do.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little frustrated it got out. It wasn't supposed to get out. They weren't supposed to know it was my money or my bonus. But those guys put in a lot of work. There's a lot that goes on in a football program to make it successful. And, the more successful you are, the more the head coach makes. But I wanted those guys to know that I appreciated them and that they deserve to be rewarded for the season we're having. Like I said, it wasn't supposed to get out. I still don't know how it got out, but it really doesn't matter at this point. But it's definitely something that those guys deserve, and that I was honored and privileged to be able to have the opportunity to do something like that for those guys.
After a rough year one as head coach, now your team sitting at 9-2. What do you feel like has been the difference for your football team to take that next step?
Competitive people. We recruited competitive people that hate to lose more than they love to win. Just people who wake up every day with a chip on their shoulder to go do something that everybody says they can't do, or do something beyond what the normal is. And that's not an accident. That is, our coaching staff recruiting the mindset of people that have that dog in them. And there's a lot of really talented people out there. Not everybody fits our program. I like people who bring positive energy and who love to compete. And if you have a smile on your face walking around our building when you're being recruited by us and you're competitive, you're a fit for us, because those are the two things we're looking for.
Coach, one of the things that's kind of frustrating me for you guys, I don't know if you're getting the respect that you deserve. Ranked 16th, you're sitting there behind a Group of 5 program like Boise State. You got a great resume. One of your losses came without your starting quarterback on the road in a game that was still close. How do you balance, getting ready? Because it's unfortunate reality that you do have to campaign and make your best case. How do you balance that with making sure you take care of business and, take care of the game tonight?
You know, I'm all about just what you can control. Like, let's go. I can guarantee this. If we don't take care of business today, we are not going anywhere, right? So we're not going to the championship game. We're not going to the playoffs. I can guarantee that. And in life, there's not many guarantees except that. So we better go take care of our own business. And if we take care of business and do what we're supposed to do, you know, everything that we want to achieve is still in front of us. And nobody's going to be able to take that away. And that's the way to, you know, to keep our focus, is keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is going to win the Territorial Cup and play as good as we can play today.
Coach, we've been talking about it all morning. When it comes to the Big 12 title game, the college football playoff, there are a ton of scenarios that need to play out today in your conference in particular. What have you told your players over the past few weeks that in order to keep them focused and focus on what's in front of them instead of all the noise and scenarios?
Yeah, you know, we've never talked about wins. We've never talked about what a good season is. We've never talked about a bowl game. We've never talked about a championship. I talk about just being the very best. We define success one way in our program: being the very best you can be all the time at whatever you're doing. That's it. And same thing this week. Be the very best all the time at whatever you're doing. And if you continue to do that, right, then expectations will raise, and the actual level of what people think is successful will raise. You could have told us week before the season 6 wins would have been a successful season. Well, you couldn't have told us that after we hit 6 wins. Then it was 7 wins. Then it was 8 wins. Now it was 9 wins. Now it's winning this game. I said success is so relative. If you get wrapped up in that, it's going to be really hard to be successful in life. Get wrapped up in the process of being the very best you can be, and you'll achieve things you never thought you could achieve. And that's really what we've been focused on.
Coach, before we let you get out of here, we're on set here with 2 former running backs, myself, James White, Super Bowl champ. So we love running backs, and we want to talk about Cam Scatterbo. We see he's been an instrumental leader on the field and off the field. We saw the speech that he gave at halftime in your win last week. How big of a role does he play in your team's success? Not only what you've done up to this point, but moving forward, winning this game, hopefully capturing a conference championship and getting into the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I think not enough people give him enough credit for changing the culture of a program, right? He's instrumental in not just, you know, you see him make all these plays on the field. You see him break tackles. You see his contact balance, which is as good as I've ever been around. And I've been blessed to coach 5 of my last 5 really running backs have played on Sundays. And he has the best contact balance of anybody I've ever coached. But his mindset and the way he is wired and his competitive spirit has helped change this program into a team that believes we can win, who plays with physicality, who plays hard, who's competitive in everything we do. And I really, truly believe he's somebody that the fan base is going to look back on, and he's going to be one of the instrumental people that they say, man, what flipped Arizona State? What was one of the key players that turned this place into a perennial winner? And they're going to look back in 20 years and say, it was Cam.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to watching him and your entire team today. Best of luck. We appreciate you taking the time this morning.
I appreciate it. Go Devils.
Thanks, Coach. Best of luck. That is Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham joining us live here on College Football Pregame. Head of a really big game, rivalry game for the Sun Devils. They have a real shot at punching their ticket to the Big 12 title game. And also right now, Sun Devils with a 42% chance to make the college football playoff. Let's start with a preview of the game today, though. Danny, what are your expectations?
This is one of several games that I look at, and like, you're a favorite, all you got to do is just go win the game. And yet it's very, you know, it's not always easy. I think they have to make sure, because Noah Fafita, the quarterback for Arizona, and Teteroa McMillan are a dynamic duo. They have fallen well short of expectations this season. You know, it hasn't gone any way they want. Brent Brennan takes over. It's a little bit of a setback. But you know what would save their season? A win against Arizona State in a rivalry game. So you've got to make sure you destroy their confidence, their hope, their dreams of ruining your day early. Because the longer you let a rival and an underdog around, longer you let them hang around, the longer that game gets more of a headache for you, because they're starting to believe, oh, we can pull off this upset. So you have to handle your business from the start, and it starts with getting after Fafita and making sure Teteroa McMillan doesn't beat you.
Well, another team in the Big 12 that we've talked about, sprinkled here and there throughout the course of our pregame coverage, is Colorado. 9-3 on the season, obviously had a dominating win yesterday against Oklahoma State. Are they worthy or unworthy of a shot at the college football playoff?
I think they're worthy. I think it's one, because of the most talent. One, one of the most talented teams in the country, and two, they've gotten better fundamentally at all the things that we looked at this program and said they don't do this well. Well, they've made improvements at every single area. Protecting Shedeur, although it's not great all the time, it's a step up from last year. Same in the run game. This defense is giving up almost half as many points as they were last year. I don't think, take away the resumes, take away all the things, all the metrics that we grade these teams by. When you just want to know the top 12 teams in the country, I think Colorado is one of them.
But you can't take all that away, Damien. You can't. So here's the thing. If they win the Big 12, I would love to see it. I think it'd be awesome for college football to see Deion and Travis Hunter and Shedeur, like the brands that would be phenomenal television. I think that's their only path. I don't think they're worthy. They also, their non-conference loss against Nebraska is one that just looms large over them. Like, you can lose a couple times. We were just talking to Kenny Dillingham. They have a couple conference losses, not great, but they're still in the mix. I think they're worthy. But if you lose to an out-of-conference team the way they did 28-10 against Nebraska, that really devastates your chances. 3 losses is too much.
I love what they're doing. I love Deion. I love the way they're trending in the right direction. But I think they're unworthy right now. The offensive line has improved. As you saw yesterday, they go in spells where Shedeur's holding the ball, where they're not protecting. They get behind the 8 ball, and they cannot run the football. If you can't run the football when you get into the playoffs, I don't think you really have a chance to win. I know Shedeur can throw the ball all across the yard to Webster, to Travis Hunter and company, but if you can't efficiently run the football and your offensive line can't protect you, it's hard to see me giving them a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to seeing how this plays out at the end of today in the Big 12. Another team that is 9-3 on the season, Ole Miss. They won yesterday against Mississippi State. Are the Rebels worthy or unworthy, Danny, in your opinion, of the college football playoff?
Man, listen. We need to get them out the paint, all right? And Lane Kiffin over here is campaigning and talking this week about playing in the Big 12. It'd be one thing if you had lost to some of the best teams in the SEC. And you could rave about the gauntlet and the schedule that you've gone against. But you've lost to 2 teams as a double-digit favorite that aren't very good. And I know Florida's been trending. They've been great recently. But they're not, like, world beaters. They're still, like, that's a bad loss. So I don't think they have any business. Kentucky losing at home to Kentucky, those are 2 devastating losses. And then I forgot about LSU. Losing to LSU, another team that has fallen well short of expectations. So that is 3 losses to not very good teams. And I get they play in the SEC, but those are inexcusable to me. I think Ole Miss is unworthy.
I agree. They're unworthy. They've been too inconsistent. There have been times where they look like one of the best teams in college football, and there have been times, like Danny said, where they lose at home to Kentucky. You never know what you're going to get from this team. They're so unpredictable. I think that starts with Lane. We all know Lane is a pretty unpredictable guy, and his team plays that way. But some of those losses, especially that Kentucky loss, the Florida loss, you can even throw that in there as well. I think those were just too much for Ole Miss to get in.
They're unworthy. They're just one of those teams who I just can never trust. A lot of talent on both sides of the football. When they're on, they're on, but when they're off, they're off. When it comes to crucial moments, 2 minutes, they're down. They can't seem to find a way to make a play. I do like the way Jackson Dart played yesterday against Mississippi State. Didn't have a ton of great passing yards, but took some shots, ran the ball, and made some plays with his legs. But I'm not convinced when it comes to Ole Miss.
All right, well, at 9-3, just a 16% chance of making the college football playoff for the Ole Miss Rebels. All right, quick break for us. We have to hit a break, but when we come back, we are talking about more of the rivalry games on tap today. Season finale. We're previewing some of the biggest games of the weekend. Don't go anywhere. More college football pregame right after this. back here in college football pregame, presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Make every moment more. We're gearing up for Rivalry Week. A ton on the line. The stakes are so high with conference championships just around the corner. We're going to go through some of these matchups today with teams that have everything on the line to lose, taking on teams that really have nothing to lose. We begin with our game that is on CBS today, Notre Dame taking on USC. What are you expecting in this one?
What do you want to see? What do I want to see versus what do I expect to see?
Yeah.
I expect Notre Dame to handle this game.
Yeah.
I think USC, they made a change at quarterback. They benched Miller Moss. They've been going through some things. Lincoln Riley is trying to save himself at USC. Notre Dame, on the other hand, they're hot right now. Ever since that NIU loss that we dinged them for so much, I pounded the table because they lost that game, and I had a lot of opinions about it. Well, every game since then, they have won. And I think that when we have these conversations, we're starting to take it into account how hard it is to win week in and week out, regardless of who you're playing, what conference you're in. None of those things matter. It's hard to win every single week, and Notre Dame has done that. But Notre Dame has everything to lose in this game, because if they do not win, they are out of the playoff picture, no questions asked. So they have everything to lose with this matchup.
Notre Dame could be the most fraudulent team in the country. But there is a caveat, though. Like, I'm not 100% sure, because they've been blowing out nobodies, and that includes Florida State. I think it includes Army and Navy. I know they're top 25, but they just don't have the personnel that a lot of teams do. They have played two pretty good opponents. Texas A&M on the road with a different quarterback, by the way. That was not Marcel Reed. They did get the win, and they played Louisville, who they beat by a touchdown that was a little bit close. That was at home. Now they have to go across the country, play a team where Lincoln Riley is going to scheme up some things against a defense that has been very, very good. He's going to find a way to put up some points. And again, Riley Leonard has gotten better versus awful competition throughout the season. I'm still not 100% convinced, if USC can score on Notre Dame's defense, that Notre Dame can do the same to USC's defense. They'll be the most athletic, physical team they've faced since week 1.
All right, you said Lincoln Riley. You expect him to put some points up on the board. If he doesn't get it done, this Trojans team doesn't get it done, are you putting Lincoln Riley on the hot seat?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think he's going to get fired this offseason, but you talk about an uncomfortable situation, an entire offseason, there's going to be a ton of conversation, a ton of question marks, and then you enter next season with, like, it better be good this year, or else you're probably going to be on the outside looking in, getting fired.
He's definitely going to get a lot of eyes looking on him. They brought Caleb Williams over there the whole show, expecting them to be a national championship contender. That didn't happen. Switched to Miller Moss, bench him. He's supposed to be the quarterback guru, and their offense has not been clicking. So I could definitely see the question marks when it comes to that. But when it comes to this matchup, I think Notre Dame handles business. They can run the football with anybody. Love, Price, Riley Leonard, and their defense second in the country as far as points per game. They can slow down any offense. I know they had the one hiccup to NIU. Shout out to my Huskies helping out. Shout out to those guys, but they've played better since then, and they've been, look, they're playing the teams on their schedule, and they're winning convincingly. You see other teams playing lesser opponents, and the games are closer, so I got to give them their due, and they're winning by a lot of points, only one loss.
They completely skate by not playing in a conference.
Yes.
The fact that they just take a bye, their bye, because there was like, oh, well, they can't play for the bye. They get a bye by not having to play on conference championship weekend, and they probably get a home playoff game. It's a completely unfair dynamic that unfolds, but the College Football Playoff Committee, they let them do it. So, like, Notre Dame's like, all right, we'll keep doing it.
We'll take it, yeah. All right, well, let's get to the ACC here, because we have another game on tap in Syracuse, New York, where there's a team in Miami that has everything to lose, taking on a team in Syracuse that has nothing to lose this season. Miami can clinch their spot in the ACC championship game today with a win over Cuse. You think they get it done?
This is a tough one, because this is going to be a game where Miami's defense has to step up in order for them to win. I know that Cam Ward and this offense, Xavier Restrepo, Damian Martinez, they can put up points with the best of them. Well, guess what? So can Syracuse, because Kyle McCord is leading the country in passing yards. I mean, he has played phenomenal football. They're really, really good on offense. So if Miami's defense does not step up, look out for Syracuse to upset them today. But I'm sure this is going to be an offensive fireworks display. I can't wait to watch. I can't give you a winner quite yet, because I don't know what defense Miami's going to come out with, but we shall see.
This drives me nuts, because I think this is a good football team. Syracuse is 8-3. Like, that's a really good season. They've had some perplexing losses. The game against Pitt got sideways because Kyle McCord threw 3 first-half pick sixes. Like, that game was kind of a wash. He leads the country with 358 yards passing per game. outside of those 6 interceptions he had in that game, he would be 26-6. This is a dangerous spot for Miami to be in. I think Cam Ward, they have enough. That's why I like a shootout to unfold. I think Cam Ward will be fine, but it's a dangerous spot.
Yeah.
It's definitely a dangerous spot, but Syracuse is a team who doesn't like to blitz, and Cam Ward, for teams who don't blitz, he shreds them. I expect this to be a high-scoring football game. Kyle McCord, he could throw the ball across the yards. Just Miami's secondary, just very inconsistent. They played well against Wake Forest last week in the second half, but they have to tighten up against Syracuse.
All right, you saw that total, 67.5 as well on this game. All right, well, conference championship weekend right around the corner. We're going to be in Indianapolis at the Big Ten championship game. Live coverage right here on CBS Sports HQ. We can't wait for it. Oregon has already punched their ticket to the Big Ten championship game. Their opponent is still a question mark. However, Ohio State has the simplest path to that championship game. All they got to do is beat rival Michigan today. James, what are you expecting?
It's pretty simple for Ohio State. Stop the run. If you stop the run, you're going to win this football game. Do not let Donovan Edwards, do not let Mullins get going, and make Davis Warren be inefficient. If he can't throw the football, they stand no chance of winning this football game. Your defense is playing like the best defense in the country. JTT, you got guys in the back end, Igbinosun, Caleb Downs playing like one of the best safeties in the country. So they're dangerous. Just go out there and execute against Michigan.
It seems like they have a simple plan, and it seems like it should be so easy for Ohio State, but it should have been that way before. And Ryan Day's record is 1-3. So with what we talked about earlier, this dark cloud hanging over Ryan Day's head, does this create him to come out and coach more tight? Does it transfer down to his players? Do his players play with a little bit more tightness in their game? Does that allow an opportunity for Michigan to keep this game close? We will see.
Danny?
I think the only way Ohio State loses this game is if they choke. Like if Will Howard throws a couple picks, if they fumble the ball, like one of the backs, like they're the better football team. But like how much does that tension, does that potentially mess with them? Does it force with them? Like they're going to be stressed, but I think it's a blowout. I really do. I think they have enough physicality to shut down that run game. Michigan's been so one-dimensional. It should be the year that Ryan Day gets this program back on track in this rivalry.
All right.
Should
Buckeye
be.
fans.
Should be.
Right?
Hey, I don't know what he's saying. We're going to put some heat, I guess, on your head coach, Kalen DeBoer. Let's do it. That's next on the other side. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, it's college football pregame. It's time now for our parlay party presented by FanDuel. Make every college football game mean more with FanDuel. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your $5 bet wins. Just scan the QR code to get started on America's #1 sportsbook. As we welcome you back on our set here, college football pregame continues on CBS Sports HQ. I'm Jordan Giorgio alongside Damien Harris, Mackenzie Brooks, Danny Kanell, and James White with you. Damien, we will start with you. First leg of our 5-leg parlay. Let's do it.
Last one. We got
Last one, so I'm going to go out with a bang.
Let's go.
I'm going out with a bang. Give me Auburn to cover today. 10.5-point spread on the road in Tuscaloosa against the University of Alabama Crimson Tide.
Wow, so we're choosing violence
I
today.
know.
That's our last one. We got to go out with
Right
something.
off the bat.
All right, well, over on FanDuel, where you can make every moment more, they actually offer you third-quarter spreads. And there's one team in college football that is the best offensive, defensively in the third quarter, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes to cover the third-quarter spread of 4.5. I don't know how this game goes completely. I think Michigan maybe could cover, but that third quarter, something about it for Ohio State. They get it done.
Whew, that's Chip Patterson special. I'm going to go to one of the best rivalries in the sport. While it doesn't have as much at stake this year, going to Tallahassee, where it is a 16.5-point spread, which is the largest since 2008.
Don't do it.
That was when Tim Tebow was there. Tim Tebow's not walking through those doors. Florida State's defense is able to contain DJ Lagway to frustrate him. I also kind of like the under, but that's way too many points. Give me Florida State at home playing for pride to finish the season. They just had an offensive fireworks display versus Charleston Southern. Give me Florida State and those points.
Oh, God.
No one has to be part of your problem.
Yeah, I know.
I'm rolling with Michigan, plus 19.5. Ohio State's offensive line, they suffered 2 injuries, 2 season injuries, and the strength of Michigan's team is their defensive front. Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, Kenneth Gant. The way to slow down their passing game is to get after Will Howard. I feel like they keep it within striking distance, and Ohio State wins, but only by about 14 points.
Oh, all right. Last leg, best leg, last show, best show.
Underdog, Jordan.
I am eyeing the South Carolina-Clemson game, and I'm so glad that Pate said it earlier. He also thinks South Carolina is going to win this game. I got a little money line sprinkle on the Gamecocks. They're riding momentum, 5-game win streak right now. I think it's going to be a competitive one. I think it's going to be a close one. South Carolina comes out on top. And that is it, your must-bet Saturday college football pregame parlay.
Jordan always giving us that plus money.
I get you there. You can always count on me. You can go ahead and get this locked in on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We are not too far removed from noon kickoffs, which means it is time to make some game picks. Week 14 is here. Stay with us. And we're back here on CBS Sports HQ. It's college football pregame, less than 10 minutes away from noon kickoffs. It's week 14, which means it's time to make some game picks. We were going to start with the game, Michigan-Ohio State, but you guys all picked the Buckeyes to get that win and punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship game, where they will face Oregon. But we begin with the Iron Bowl in Tuscaloosa. Auburn, Alabama. So many memories are coming back to you right now. Are you rolling with the Tide?
Well, memories from my career and also memories of what have happened this season for both teams. So I said it once, and I'm going to say it again. I like Auburn to cover today. Listen, Alabama has zero momentum right now. We've talked about Jalen Milroe digressing. We've talked about the lack of weapons, whether it be the receivers, the running backs. We've talked about this defense can't really stop anybody. Well, Auburn is coming off a big win against Texas A&M. They've got a lot of momentum, and I'm sure they're carrying that over into Tuscaloosa in this game. I like Auburn to cover.
I can't believe I'm fighting for Alabama and you're going against Alabama. Look, there is always a will and a way for Alabama to keep themselves in the playoff conversation. They will take no chances here. Lord knows they need to win this game, probably cover two. I think especially at home they'll get it done.
Seriously, they've backdoored their way into so many national championship games. So many losses. Bama's going to roll.
I'm rolling with Bama. Milroe has a day. The trash talk will motivate him. Ryan Williams is due for a 100-yard game, too, so I expect for him to have a big game.
All right, moving on here. We got a ranked matchup in Death Valley, South Carolina and Clemson. Stakes have never been higher. So much on the line. Who are you riding with?
I apologize to my new friend, Dabo Sweeney, but I'm going to have to go with South Carolina. They've been playing like one of the best teams in the country at the end of the season. Like I said, Lenore Sellers, Rocket Sanders, this defense, Dylan Stewart, Luke Kennard, like they are playing really good football right now on both sides of the football. I think it's going to be too much for Clemson today. I
think this will be too much for Clemson, too. I mean, when Clemson plays actual competitive run offenses, their numbers aren't that good. They're stat padded by weak opponents. I do think USC can get this done today.
The real Carolina plays in Chapel Hill. The real USC plays in L.A. This is a team without a true name. I'm going to go Clemson in this one.
No, I'm rolling with South Carolina. They force it to be a drop passing game. You know, Dylan Stewart, Kennard, they get after Klubnik and make it tough on them.
All right, let's get to College Station now. Arguably the most impactful matchup in this rivalry's history. Winner advances to the SEC championship game. Texas A&M, and Longhorns are actually favored on the road here by 5.5.
Give me the Aggies. Give me Texas A&M.
Okay,
I think with Quinn being limited, even if you see, if you see Arch Manning come in and take over this game, a lot of the times when he's come in, it's been handpicked. Other than that Georgia game. We saw in the Georgia game, he still didn't handle that game very well either. This is going to be a really tough environment for whoever's playing quarterback. If Quinn is limited mobility-wise, if Arch goes in there, like it's not just going to be a walk in the park for either quarterback. I think Texas A&M comes out on top today.
See, to me, Quinn he's played his whole career, you know, basically injured, right? This is how he plays, and he's still a good quarterback here. I think the media and everybody loves the Aggies, and that's exactly when you have to go with the other side here. I like Texas.
I'm torn on this one. I think it's going to be the Aggies. I'll go with the Aggies to win it outright. I was bullish on them about a month ago. Then they've had a couple less than stellar performances. How do they bounce back after that emotional loss at Auburn last week is a question, but I think the home crowd, 12th man, gets it done.
Hook 'em. Going with Texas. Offensive line is going to protect Quinn Ewers from Shamar Stewart and company, and Scorton can protect him. He's going to have an efficient day. He's due for over a 200-plus yard game throwing the football. He's struggled a little bit over the last several weeks, but I expect a big performance today.
All right, we have a few seconds left here. Give me a winner. Our game on CBS, Notre Dame, USC.
Notre Dame.
All right.
Absolutely Notre Dame. And you know what? They want to go out in style as well because they're competing with Penn State for that 5-7 seed. And if they look better than USC, that really helps them with a favorable matchup.
I'll go out in Canal Island again. It's a place I love. It's great sun. It's great. You got
I don't know why you do this to me yourself.
Give me USC to win the game.
Wow.
I'm rolling with Notre Dame. Riley Leonard and company going to run the ball all over the yard against USC.
All right. That'll do it for us here on College Football Pregame. For all of us here at CBS Sports HQ, thanks so much for joining us each and every Saturday morning. We love spending our game day with you. We will see you next Saturday, Big Ten Championship game. We will have live coverage on CBS Sports HQ. Until then, enjoy the games, everybody.